People often pause and think about why they are here. It can happen in quiet moments, like staring at the night sky or sitting alone in a room after a long day. You may ask yourself why life exists at all and what it means to be alive. These thoughts are natural. They come from a deep part of the human mind that wants to understand. When you ask these questions, you are not just thinking about yourself. You are looking at the whole world and wondering how you fit into it. Imagine walking through a forest. You see trees that have stood for hundreds of years. You notice birds building nests and ants carrying food back to their colony. Everything seems to have a role. The trees grow, the birds raise their young, the ants keep their world moving. Then you stop and wonder, what about you? Are you here for a reason, or do you create your own purpose? This kind of reflection can feel heavy, because there is no simple answer. Some people turn to science to explain why life exists. They think about evolution, the Big Bang, and the way atoms formed into stars and planets. Science offers a timeline and a process, showing how humans came to be over billions of years. This can bring comfort, because it gives a clear picture of how we got here. But even with this knowledge, another question remains. Knowing how you came to exist does not explain why you exist. It is like understanding how a book was printed without knowing why the author wrote it. Others look to belief systems or religion. These can provide purpose by giving a story about life, death, and what lies beyond. In these views, life has meaning because it is part of a larger plan. For example, someone might believe they are here to care for others, grow spiritually, or prepare for another stage of existence. This can bring peace because it gives direction, but it can also lead to more questions, especially when bad things happen. A person may wonder why suffering exists if life has a guiding plan. There are also people who find purpose without looking to science or faith. They focus on what they can do in their daily lives. For them, meaning comes from small actions like raising a child, helping a friend, or creating something new. They may not know if there is a grand plan, but they still shape their lives in ways that feel valuable. Think of an artist painting a picture. The painting does not need to explain the whole universe. It only needs to express something true in that moment. When you question your existence, you may feel lost at first. It can feel like standing in a wide, empty space with no signs to guide you. Some people become anxious or even afraid. They may think, if there is no clear reason for life, then nothing matters. This reaction is normal, but it is not the only way to see things. Consider this. If there is no set path, you are free to choose your own. That freedom can be frightening, but it can also be empowering. Imagine two people standing at the edge of a vast field. One sees it as empty and meaningless. The other sees it as open space where anything can grow. Both are looking at the same field, but their choices shape what happens next. In the same way, when you reflect on life, you have a chance to decide what matters to you. These deep thoughts are not just private puzzles. They can affect how you live and how you treat others. If you believe life has value, you may be more kind and patient. If you think life has no built-in meaning, you might still choose to act with care because you know others are facing the same uncertainty. In this way, even doubt can lead to compassion. At times, these questions can push people to change. Someone might leave a job that feels empty or end a relationship that no longer works. They may start a new project or learn a new skill, driven by a need to create their own sense of purpose. Reflection becomes action. Think about a person who has always worked long hours without stopping to think why. One day, they wake up and ask, "Why am I doing this?" That single question can lead them to shift their whole life. They may still work hard, but now they choose projects that matter to them. The same job feels different when it connects to a deeper reason. It is also possible for these thoughts to come and go. You might have a day when the world feels clear and full of meaning. Then, on another day, you might feel lost again. This change is part of being human. Life moves in cycles. Like the tide, purpose can flow in and out. There is no rule for how often you should reflect. Some people think deeply every day. Others only do it when something big happens, like a birth, a death, or a major change. What matters is that when the questions come, you give yourself space to listen. These moments of questioning are like pauses in music. They do not stop the song, they make it richer. By looking at your life and asking why, you give yourself a chance to see it more fully. You may never find one final answer, and that is okay. Sometimes the act of asking is enough to shape the way you live. In the end, these reflections help you see that you are part of something larger. You share the same world with countless others who also wonder, struggle, and grow. Even if you do not know the ultimate purpose of existence, you can still find meaning in connection, in action, and in the quiet moments when you stop to think. People often accept things as they seem. It feels easier to look at the surface and move on. But when you pause and think, you notice that what you see at first is rarely the whole story. Deep thinking is like lifting a cover to see what lies underneath. It takes patience and care. It asks you to slow down and question what is in front of you. This way of thinking helps you understand the world in a more complete way. Consider a pond on a still day. The water looks calm and clear. If you only glance at it, you might say it is peaceful. But if you take time to look closer, you might see movement below. Fish swim through the shadows. Plants grow in patterns shaped by the current. The pond is not just a flat surface. It is a whole world, full of layers and connections you could not see at first. Many parts of life are like that pond. The truth sits beneath what you notice right away. Imagine a friend who seems upset. They snap at you over something small. At first, you might think they are angry with you. But if you stop and think, you might realize there could be more going on. Maybe they had a hard day at work. Maybe they are worried about a sick family member. Their words are the surface. Their feelings and struggles are the deeper layer. By looking beyond what you hear, you understand them better and respond with care instead of anger. This kind of deeper thinking can change how you see events in the world. A news headline might seem simple. A factory closes and people lose jobs. That is the surface view. But when you ask why it closed, you might find a chain of causes. Maybe new technology made the factory less useful. Maybe another country produces the same goods at a lower cost. Maybe decisions by leaders years ago shaped today's outcome. Each step adds context and meaning. Without looking deeper, you might believe the first thing you hear and miss the larger picture. Deep thinking can also help with decisions. Picture someone who gets an offer for a high-paying job in another city. At first glance, the money seems like the only factor, but if they think more deeply, they might see other pieces. Moving could mean leaving friends and family. It could mean higher living costs that reduce the benefit of the salary. It might even change their sense of identity if the work does not match their values. By exploring these hidden factors, they make a choice that fits their life better. Looking beneath the surface often reveals connections between things that seem separate. Think about a simple object, like a pencil. On the surface, it is just a tool for writing. But if you trace its story, you find a network. Wood is cut from trees. Graphite is mined from the earth. Metal is shaped into the band that holds the eraser. People in many places work to produce each part. The pencil you hold in your hand is the end result of countless steps and lives. Seeing this chain of connections can shift how you view even ordinary items. This way of thinking also applies to yourself. Sometimes you react to situations without knowing why. You might feel angry, sad, or excited, and the reason seems unclear. If you stop and look inward, you might notice patterns. Maybe your anger links to past experiences. Maybe your excitement comes from a deep value or hope. By looking past the surface of your emotions, you understand yourself better. This self-knowledge helps you act with intention instead of impulse. In relationships, surface thinking can create misunderstandings. Picture a couple who argues about small tasks, like washing dishes. On the surface, it seems like a fight about chores, but deeper reflection might show it is about feeling respected or supported. If one person feels unheard, even a small issue becomes a symbol of a bigger problem. By seeing past the surface, the couple can address the real concern instead of repeating the same fight. Looking beyond appearances can also expose biases. Suppose you meet someone for the first time. You notice their clothes, the way they speak, or the job they have. These surface details might shape your first impression, but if you take time to learn about them, you might find parts of their story that challenge your assumptions. They may have faced struggles you never imagined. They may have skills or dreams that are not obvious. By digging deeper, you see them as a whole person instead of a set of labels. Deep thinking is not always comfortable. It can reveal truths you would rather ignore. For example, you might look at a successful company and see profit and growth, but if you explore further, you might find workers treated unfairly or resources taken in harmful ways. This deeper view can be painful, but it gives you the chance to act with awareness. Without it, you risk supporting harm without even knowing it. Sometimes the deeper layer shows hope instead of harm. A city park might look empty and unused at first glance, but if you visit at different times, you might see children playing, artists drawing, or families gathering. The park holds quiet value that is not visible in a single moment. When you take time to look again, you discover meaning that was hidden. Looking beneath the surface does not mean doubting everything. It means being open to more than what you first see. It means asking questions and listening for answers. Think of a detective solving a case. They do not stop at the first clue. They follow each thread, even when it leads to unexpected places. In life, you can take the same approach. When something seems simple, pause and ask what else might be true. Imagine a student struggling in school. The surface view might say they are lazy or unmotivated. That deeper thinking could reveal other factors. Maybe they are hungry because there is not enough food at home. Maybe they cannot see the board clearly because they need glasses. Maybe they feel unsafe in their neighborhood and cannot focus. Each layer changes how you respond. Instead of blame, you might offer help. Deep thinking also strengthens problem solving. A business facing low sales might assume the product is bad, but by looking deeper, they might find the issue is with marketing or distribution. They might discover customers do not understand how to use the product. By uncovering the real problem, they can fix it more effectively. This approach takes effort. It is easier to accept the surface story, but when you practice looking deeper, it becomes a habit. You start to notice patterns, causes, and unseen links without forcing yourself. The world becomes more layered and complex, but also more interesting. Life is full of things that are not what they seem. A smile can hide sadness. A setback can lead to growth. A small action can ripple outward in ways you cannot predict. By thinking deeply, you see these layers and move through life with greater understanding. You stop living only on the surface and begin to explore the rich depth beneath it. Most people try to avoid thinking about death. It feels heavy, even frightening. But facing the truth that life is limited can bring a strange kind of clarity. It strips away distractions and forces you to see what matters most. When you realize your time is finite, you stop pretending you have endless days to do everything. You start to make choices with greater care. Imagine holding an hourglass in your hand. You can see the sand falling grain by grain. Each grain is a moment you will never get back. When you watch the sand closely, you become aware of how precious each moment is. Life works the same way. We cannot see our own hourglass, but we know it exists. That awareness can change how we live. Consider someone who works long hours at a job they do not love. They keep telling themselves they will travel one day, spend more time with family, or start a hobby they care about. Then they lose a close friend unexpectedly. Suddenly, the idea of one day feels fragile. This shock makes them think deeply about their own life. They might decide to cut back on work or take that trip they have always delayed. Mortality has a way of pushing people to act instead of waiting. Thinking about death can also shift how you view conflict. Small arguments often seem huge in the moment. But when you remember that life is short, those arguments lose some of their power. Imagine two siblings who have not spoken for years over a disagreement. Then one of them gets seriously ill. In that moment, the fight seems unimportant compared to the limited time they might have left together. Awareness of mortality often softens pride and anger, making space for forgiveness. People also reflect on their values when they think about their own death. It becomes clear that not all goals are equal. A person may have spent years chasing status or wealth, only to realize those things cannot bring lasting satisfaction. When you picture your final days, you tend to focus on relationships, experiences, and moments of meaning. The thought of death acts like a filter, separating what is essential from what is trivial. Imagine someone standing in a crowded store, surrounded by noise and bright lights. At first, everything seems urgent. Every item calls for attention. Then the lights go out, and only a few things remain visible. Those are the things you grab before you leave. Thinking about mortality works like that blackout. It removes the clutter and shows you what truly matters. This reflection does not have to be dark or depressing. In fact, it can bring gratitude. When you know life has limits, even simple things become precious. A shared meal, a walk outside, or a laugh with a friend feels more vivid when you realize these moments will not last forever. You begin to notice details you once ignored. A sunset is no longer just the end of the day. It becomes a reminder of beauty in a world that keeps moving forward, whether you notice it or not. Some people avoid this kind of thinking because it makes them anxious. They try to push the thought of death away by staying busy or distracting themselves. But ignoring it does not make it disappear. It only delays the discomfort. Facing it directly can actually reduce fear over time. Imagine someone who is afraid to swim. The more they avoid water, the scarier it becomes. When they finally step into a pool and feel the water around them, they begin to relax. Thinking about mortality works in a similar way. The first step feels cold and unsettling, but it becomes easier with practice. Many cultures have traditions that keep death in view. Some hold festivals to honor ancestors. Others use symbols like skulls or flowers to remind people of life's impermanence. These rituals are not meant to be morbid. They help people accept the cycle of life and death as natural. In some places, families gather to tell stories about those who have passed, turning grief into connection. By keeping death visible, they reduce its power to terrify. Contemplating mortality can also shape how you treat others. When you remember that everyone is facing the same end, it is harder to be cruel or indifferent. Picture standing in a crowded train station. You see strangers rushing by. At first, they are just faces you do not know. Then you imagine that each one has a limited amount of time, just like you. They have people they love, dreams they hold, and fears they carry. This thought creates a sense of shared humanity. It makes kindness feel more urgent. This awareness can influence daily decisions. A person might choose to spend more time with their children instead of chasing another promotion. They might forgive a friend instead of holding on to resentment. They might volunteer to help others, knowing that their actions ripple outward even after they are gone. Mortality does not just remind us of limits. It also highlights the impact we can have while we are here. There is also a practical side to thinking about death. It encourages planning. People write wills, make healthcare decisions, and discuss their wishes with loved ones. These tasks can feel uncomfortable, but they bring peace of mind. They also reduce stress for family members later. Facing mortality directly helps you prepare, rather than leaving things uncertain. For some, thinking about death sparks creativity. Artists, writers, and musicians often draw on the idea of impermanence. Knowing that nothing lasts forever pushes them to capture fleeting moments. A photograph, a song, or a story becomes a way to hold time still, even for just a little while. The awareness of death fuels a desire to create something lasting. Imagine a person standing on a cliff overlooking the ocean. The waves crash below, constant and powerful. The person realizes they are like a single wave, rising and falling as part of a much larger sea. This image brings both humility and peace. It shows that while one life may be small, it is still part of something vast. Sometimes, thinking about mortality leads to big changes. A person might leave a toxic relationship or start a career that feels meaningful. These choices are not about avoiding death. They are about making the most of life before it ends. When you know the clock is ticking, you stop wasting time on things that drain you. It is natural to feel sadness when you think about death. It means you value life. That sadness can be a guide. It shows you where to focus your energy and attention. If the thought of losing something hurts, it means that thing matters to you now. Instead of turning away from that feeling, you can use it to shape your actions. Even simple awareness of mortality can change how you spend an ordinary day. You might pause to really taste your food, to listen closely to someone's voice, or to notice the way light falls through a window. These moments do not erase fear, but they bring a sense of presence. They remind you that while life is limited, it is also rich and full while you are living it. People grow up surrounded by ideas that feel solid and unquestionable. These ideas come from family, culture, religion, schools, and even the media. Over time, they form a foundation for how you see the world. They tell you what is right, what is wrong, and how life is supposed to work. Because they feel natural, you often do not notice them. They sit beneath your decisions, shaping your choices without you realizing it. Deep thought begins when you pause and start to question these hidden forces. It is like turning on a light in a room you have walked through in the dark for years. Suddenly, you see details you missed before. Consider a simple belief like the idea that success means having a high-paying job. Many people accept this without thinking. They go to school, choose a career, and measure their worth by their income. But what happens if you stop and ask, why do I believe this? You might trace the idea back to parents who wanted security after struggling in their own lives. Or you might see how advertisements and stories in the news glorify wealth as the ultimate goal. By questioning this belief, you open the door to other ways of defining success. Maybe for you, success means free time, strong relationships, or creative work. Without that moment of doubt, you might spend years chasing a goal that never truly fits you. Assumptions also shape how you view other people. Imagine meeting someone for the first time. You notice their clothes, their accent, and the way they speak. Instantly, your mind creates a story about who they are. This process is automatic. It comes from assumptions you have absorbed over time. But those quick judgments are often incomplete or wrong. A person who seems quiet might actually be thoughtful and observant. Someone who comes across as confident might feel deeply insecure. When you challenge your first impressions, you give others a chance to show you their real selves. History is full of examples where unquestioned beliefs caused harm. For centuries, many societies accepted the idea that certain groups of people were inferior. These beliefs were treated as facts, even though they were false and unjust. It took generations of questioning and resistance to begin breaking those assumptions apart. Think about how many lives were shaped by those false ideas before they were challenged. This shows why deep thinking matters. Without it, harmful beliefs can pass from one generation to the next, hidden beneath a surface of normalcy. Challenging assumptions is not about rejecting everything you have ever been taught. It is about holding beliefs up to the light and seeing if they still make sense. Some will stand strong when tested. Others will crumble. This process takes courage because it can create tension with people around you. If your family or friends hold a certain belief, questioning it might feel like betrayal. Imagine someone raised in a strict religious household who begins to doubt certain teachings. They may fear losing connection with loved ones if they speak openly. The choice to keep questioning or to stay silent becomes deeply personal. Sometimes assumptions are so ingrained that you do not even have words for them. They feel like the air you breathe. For example, many people assume that life should follow a set path: school, job, marriage, children, retirement. This path is presented as natural and universal, but when you look closer, you see that it is a cultural pattern, not a rule. Some people find joy in this structure. Others feel trapped by it. By recognizing it as an assumption, you gain the freedom to decide if it fits your life or if you want to take a different route. Workplaces are full of unspoken rules that go unchallenged. Picture a company where everyone stays late at the office, even when their work is done. No one says they must, but the behavior continues because people assume it shows commitment. A new employee might accept this as normal and copy it without thinking, but someone who stops and asks why may notice the cost. Long hours lead to burnout, mistakes, and unhappy workers. By questioning the assumption that more hours equal better work, a manager could introduce flexible schedules and improve the entire environment. Even personal relationships can be shaped by hidden beliefs. A person might assume that love means always agreeing with their partner. This belief could lead them to avoid conflict, even when something bothers them. Over time, resentment builds, and the relationship suffers. When they finally question that assumption, they might realize that healthy love includes honest disagreement. The relationship becomes stronger when both people can speak openly. Challenging assumptions does not always lead to comfort. It can unsettle you, leaving you unsure of what to believe. Imagine pulling a thread on a sweater. At first, you just want to fix a small loose stitch, but as you keep pulling, more threads unravel, and soon the whole sweater comes apart. Questioning one belief can lead to others, creating a period of uncertainty. This stage is difficult, but it is also where growth happens. You begin to build new beliefs that reflect your true values rather than ones you inherited blindly. One way to practice this kind of deep thinking is to ask simple, direct questions. Why do I think this is true? Who benefits from me believing this? What would happen if I believed the opposite? These questions open doors. For example, suppose you believe that failure is always bad. If you ask why, you might recall teachers or parents who punished mistakes. If you consider the opposite, you might see failure as a way to learn and grow. This shift changes how you approach challenges. Consider a common scenario in education. A student struggles with math and begins to think, "I'm just not a math person." This is an assumption, not a fact. If they never question it, they may avoid math for the rest of their life. But if they challenge it, they might discover that they simply need different teaching methods or more time to practice. By breaking the assumption, they open new paths for themselves. Media and technology also reinforce assumptions. Social media feeds often show content that aligns with what you already believe. This creates a bubble where opposing views seem rare or extreme. If you never step outside that bubble, your beliefs grow rigid. Deep thinking requires seeking out other perspectives, even when they are uncomfortable. Imagine someone who only reads news from people grow up surrounded by ideas that feel solid and unquestionable. These ideas come from family, culture, religion, schools, and even the media. Over time, they form a foundation for how you see the world. They tell you what is right, what is wrong, and how life is supposed to work. Because they feel natural, you often do not notice them. They sit beneath your decisions, shaping your choices without you realizing it. Deep thought begins when you pause and start to question these hidden forces. It is like turning on a light in a room you have walked through in the dark for years. Suddenly, you see details you missed before. Consider a simple belief like the idea that success means having a high-paying job. Many people accept this without thinking. They go to school, choose a career, and measure their worth by their income. But what happens if you stop and ask, why do I believe this? You might trace the idea back to parents who wanted security after struggling in their own lives. Or you might see how advertisements and stories in the news glorify wealth. Life is loud. There are phones buzzing, cars passing, voices talking, and screens flashing with updates. Noise fills most days, from the moment you wake up until you go to sleep. It is easy to get swept along, reacting to each sound and demand without stopping to think. In this constant motion, silence can feel strange at first, even uncomfortable. But quiet moments are powerful. They give your mind room to settle and your thoughts space to grow. In solitude, you can hear yourself more clearly. Imagine sitting alone in a quiet room after a long day. At first, you may feel restless. Your mind jumps from one task to another, replaying conversations and unfinished chores. But if you stay still and breathe, something begins to shift. The surface noise fades. Underneath, deeper thoughts begin to rise. These are not the quick, scattered ideas that come when you are rushing. They are slower, heavier, and often more meaningful. It is like a pond settling after a storm. Once the ripples calm, you can see what lies below. Solitude helps you notice patterns that stay hidden in busy environments. Think of a painter working in a crowded studio. Surrounded by chatter and movement, they might struggle to focus on their own vision. When they step into a quiet space alone, they see their work more clearly. They notice details they missed before, like how colors blend or how light falls across a canvas. The same happens with thoughts. When you are alone, you start to connect ideas in ways you could not when surrounded by distractions. Quiet also reveals truths you might avoid in the noise of daily life. Many people keep busy as a way to escape difficult feelings. They fill their schedules so there is no time to sit and face what hurts. Silence removes those barriers. When the world around you is still, emotions and memories rise to the surface. This can feel painful, but it is necessary for growth. For example, someone might realize they are unhappy in a relationship only when they finally sit alone and listen to their own heart. Without that quiet moment, they might keep ignoring their deeper needs. Some of the most important decisions are made in solitude. Picture a person standing at a crossroads in their career. Friends, coworkers, and family all have opinions about what they should do. The noise of advice can be overwhelming. Stepping away into silence allows them to sort through the voices and find their own direction. In that quiet, they can ask themselves what they truly want instead of what others expect. Throughout history, many thinkers and creators have sought out solitude. Writers retreat to cabins, scientists walk alone in nature, and leaders spend time in quiet reflection before making choices. These individuals understand that silence is not empty. It is full of potential. In those still moments, connections form between past experiences, present challenges, and future possibilities. An idea that seemed unreachable in the chaos of daily life can suddenly appear, clear and strong. Consider the way silence sharpens your senses. In a noisy room, you might overlook subtle sounds or sights, but in quiet, you notice small details. You hear the rhythm of your own breathing. You see patterns in sunlight on the floor. This heightened awareness extends to your thoughts. In solitude, you become more sensitive to inner signals, faint feelings, half-formed ideas, and unspoken desires. These signals often guide you toward choices that align with your true self. At first, solitude can feel like loneliness. The difference lies in how you meet it. Loneliness is a sense of lack, a craving for connection that feels unmet. Solitude, on the other hand, is chosen. It is a space you create for yourself to think and rest. Imagine walking into a quiet forest. If you see the trees and hear only your own footsteps, you might feel lonely if you wish someone were with you. But if you embrace the moment, you feel held by the stillness instead of isolated. Many people fear silence because it strips away distractions. In a quiet room, there is no one else to blame for your feelings or choices. You face yourself without filters. This can be unsettling, yet it is also freeing. When you stop running from your own thoughts, you gain strength. You learn to sit with discomfort and understand it. Over time, this practice builds resilience. Even brief moments of quiet can have an impact. Think about a busy office where phones ring constantly and conversations overlap. Stepping outside for 5 minutes to sit in stillness can reset your mind. It's like clearing a cluttered desk before starting a new task. The pause creates space for focus and fresh ideas. Technology makes silence harder to find. Phones and computers are designed to keep attention hooked. Notifications pull you back into noise, even when you try to step away. To protect moments of solitude, you have to be intentional. This might mean turning off devices or setting aside specific times for quiet. At first, the absence of constant input feels strange. With practice, it becomes natural, even necessary. Silence also plays a role in relationships. When you are with someone else, moments of quiet can deepen connection. Sitting together without speaking allows you to feel present without pressure. It shows trust. Think of an elderly couple sitting side by side on a porch. They do not need to fill the air with words. Their shared silence says more than conversation ever could. In conflict, silence can be a tool for understanding. When tempers flare, rushing to respond often makes things worse. Taking a moment of quiet before speaking gives space for reflection. It helps you separate immediate anger from deeper feelings. This pause can change the entire direction of a conversation. Nature offers a unique kind of silence. Walking alone in a forest or sitting by the ocean, you hear sounds that are natural and steady rather than human-made. This kind of quiet has a calming effect. It reminds you that you are part of a larger world, one that moves at its own pace. Many people find their best ideas come during a walk in nature, when their minds are free to wander without pressure. Consider a person who spends every day surrounded by noise and demands. Their thoughts feel scattered, like papers blown by the wind. Then they spend a weekend alone in a cabin with no phone, no television, and no schedule. At first, the silence feels overwhelming. By the second day, their thoughts begin to settle. By the third day, they start to see patterns and insights that were hidden before. They return to their daily life clearer and more focused. Quiet moments do not have to be dramatic or rare. They can happen anywhere. A few minutes in a parked car before going inside, a silent cup of tea in the morning, or a walk alone after dinner. These small pauses build a habit of reflection. Over time, they create a rhythm of action and rest, noise and stillness. This balance allows you to live more deeply and respond to life with greater clarity. Silence and solitude are not empty spaces. They are fertile ground where thoughts grow. In the noise of the world, you react. In the quiet, you discover. You meet yourself, listen to what you find, and return to the world with new understanding. Life is full of contradictions. Some of the most important truths seem to clash at first. They do not fit neatly into one side or the other. These are paradoxes, ideas that seem opposite, but are both true at the same time. At first, they can feel confusing, even frustrating. The mind wants things to be simple and clear, but when you sit with a paradox and explore it, you often discover a deeper kind of wisdom. Take the idea of strength and vulnerability. Many people grow up believing that strength means never showing weakness. They hide their fears, avoid asking for help, and push through pain in silence. On the surface, this looks like power, but over time, it often leads to isolation and exhaustion. True strength often comes from doing the opposite, admitting you are scared, tired, or unsure. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you invite others to connect with you. This connection creates support and resilience. Imagine a firefighter leading a team through a dangerous situation. If they pretend to know everything, their crew may feel lost and afraid. If they admit they are also worried but ready to act, the team feels united. The firefighter's openness strengthens everyone. What seemed like weakness becomes a source of real strength. Another paradox appears in the balance between freedom and discipline. Many people think freedom means doing whatever you want, whenever you want. At first, this sounds appealing, but without structure, freedom can quickly turn into chaos. Picture someone who decides to start working for themselves. They imagine sleeping late, taking long breaks, and only doing the tasks they enjoy. After a few weeks, deadlines pile up, bills go unpaid, and stress grows. True freedom requires discipline. By setting a schedule and sticking to it, they create a stable foundation. That structure gives them the space to focus on meaningful work. In this way, discipline is not the enemy of freedom, but the thing that makes it possible. Growth and acceptance form another powerful paradox. People often believe they must either work to change themselves or accept themselves as they are. It feels like a choice between self-improvement and self-love, but both can exist together. Imagine someone learning to play the piano. They accept that they are a beginner. They do not shame themselves for their mistakes. At the same time, they practice every day to grow their skills. Acceptance gives them patience. Growth gives them direction. Without acceptance, they might quit out of frustration. Without growth, they might stay stuck. When combined, the two create steady progress. Life itself holds a paradox between control and surrender. Humans like to believe they are in charge of their fate. They make plans, set goals, and work hard to shape outcomes. But much of life lies outside of anyone's control. Illness, weather, other people's choices. These can all disrupt even the best plans. Some people respond by trying to control everything. Others give up entirely. The middle path is learning when to act and when to let go. Picture a sailor on a boat. They cannot control the wind, but they can adjust the sails. They work with what they are given, steering when possible and accepting when they cannot. This blend of effort and surrender creates a calm, steady way of moving through the world. Love brings its own paradox. To love someone deeply, you must hold them close while also letting them be free. Clinging too tightly can smother a relationship. Pulling away completely can make it fall apart. Imagine parents raising a child. They guide and protect them when the child is young. As the child grows, the parents must gradually step back, giving more independence. The bond remains strong, not because of control, but because of trust. Love thrives in the space between closeness and freedom. Even happiness can be paradoxical. Many people chase happiness directly, believing that if they just work hard enough, they will reach a permanent state of joy. But the more they chase it, the further it seems to slip away. Happiness often comes as a byproduct of other things: meaningful work, close relationships, acts of kindness. It appears when you are not trying to grab it. Think of it like falling asleep. The harder you try to force it, the less likely it happens. When you relax and stop pushing, it comes naturally. Paradoxes also appear in the way people face fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting while fear is present. Imagine a mountain climber standing at the base of a steep cliff. They feel their heart race and their hands shake. If they waited until the fear vanished, they might never climb. By moving forward despite the fear, they discover courage. Fear and bravery exist together, each giving meaning to the other. Without fear, courage would not exist. In work and creativity, there is a paradox between effort and ease. Many people think great ideas come only from intense struggle. They push themselves to work harder and longer, believing that pressure alone creates results. But sometimes the best insights come when you step away and rest. A scientist might wrestle with a problem for weeks with no solution. Then, while taking a quiet walk, the answer suddenly appears. The mind needs both focus and relaxation to function well. Strain and rest work together, like breathing in and out. Paradoxes also show up in failure and success. Society often celebrates success and hides failure, but failure is often the very thing that leads to success. Consider an inventor testing a new design. The first few attempts might fail completely. Each failure teaches them something they could not have learned otherwise. Over time, these lessons shape the final successful creation. Without failure, there would be no path to success. The two are linked, not opposed. Even time holds a paradox. Life feels long when you look ahead, but short when you look back. A single day can seem endless when you are bored or waiting, yet years can pass in what feels like a blink. This contradiction reminds you to pay attention. You cannot control how fast time moves, but you can choose how deeply you experience it. A mindful moment stretches and deepens, while a distracted one slips away unnoticed. Living with paradoxes requires patience. The mind likes clear answers and firm boundaries. Paradoxes ask you to hold two truths at once, even when they seem to conflict. This can feel uncomfortable, but over time, the discomfort softens. You begin to see that opposites are often two sides of the same coin. Strength grows from vulnerability. Freedom grows from discipline. Growth comes from both striving and accepting. Imagine a rope pulled tight between two poles. The tension keeps it strong. If one side lets go completely, the rope falls slack. In the same way, life's contradictions create balance. By leaning into both sides, you stay steady. You learn to move with the tension instead of fighting it. This balance does not bring easy answers, but it brings depth and wisdom. Paradoxes are not problems to solve. They are realities to live with. When you stop trying to pick one side and reject the other, you open yourself to a fuller understanding of life. The contradictions do not cancel each other out. Instead, they create harmony, like two notes played together to form a richer sound. Through this harmony, you discover truths that are only visible when opposites meet. Thinking deeply can bring clarity and insight, but without action, even the most profound thoughts remain incomplete. Reflection is like a seed. It has potential, but unless you plant it and help it grow, it stays hidden and unused. Many people get stuck in the space between understanding and doing. They think about change, imagine different futures, and explore new ideas, but their lives stay the same. Turning thought into action closes this gap. It transforms inner growth into outward movement. Imagine someone who realizes they are unhappy in their job. They spend hours reflecting on why they feel stuck. They might write in a journal, talk with friends, or sit in quiet contemplation. Over time, they understand that their values do not match the work they do each day. This realization is powerful, but it is only the first step. If they stop here, nothing changes. To move forward, they must take action. This might mean updating a resume, applying for new positions, or having an honest conversation with their manager. Without these concrete steps, their deep understanding remains trapped in their mind, and their unhappiness continues. Action does not have to be dramatic. It can begin with small, deliberate steps. Consider someone who wants to improve their health. They think about their habits and notice they sit for most of the day and eat meals in a rush. This awareness alone will not improve their health. But if they decide to take a short walk each morning or prepare one healthy meal a day, they begin to translate thought into change. These small actions build momentum. Over time, they create visible results. Sometimes people delay action because they wait for the perfect plan. They believe they must have every detail figured out before they begin. This leads to endless thinking with no doing. Imagine a writer who dreams of publishing a book. They spend years thinking about the story, outlining characters, and researching settings. Yet they never write a single page because they fear making mistakes. If they accept that the first draft will be imperfect and start writing anyway, they turn reflection into progress. Taking imperfect action often teaches more than perfect planning ever could. Deep thought can also guide decisions in moments of uncertainty. Picture someone considering a move to another city. On the surface, they list practical factors like cost of living, job opportunities, and distance from family. But deeper reflection reveals what truly matters to them: a sense of belonging, creative opportunities, and a slower pace of life. These values shape their choice more than numbers alone. Once they have this clarity, they must act on it. Booking a flight to visit the city, speaking with potential employers, or giving notice at their current job turns inner reflection into a real-world path forward. Action often requires courage because it brings risk. Reflection feels safe. You can explore ideas in your mind without exposing yourself to failure or criticism. But the moment you act, you face the possibility of mistakes. Consider someone who has always wanted to start a business. They think about it for years, imagining how it would feel to run their own company. When they finally launch their first product, they risk rejection. If customers do not respond, they must adjust and try again. This discomfort is part of growth. Without stepping into action, the dream remains a fantasy. There are times when thought and action must move back and forth like a rhythm. Too much reflection without action creates stagnation. Too much action without reflection leads to chaos. Imagine a sailor navigating a river. They pause to study the current and rocks ahead, then paddle forward. If they only stare at the water, they drift aimlessly. If they paddle without looking, they crash. Balance comes from alternating between planning and moving. Some actions require preparation. For example, someone might want to speak up about an unfair situation at work. Reflection helps them understand what they want to say and why it matters. They might write down key points, think through possible reactions, and plan how to stay calm. Once they feel ready, they must take the step of speaking up. If they stay silent, all their careful reflection stays locked inside and nothing changes. In relationships, reflection can help you see patterns. Imagine two friends who argue often. After a heated exchange, one of them takes time alone to think. They realize the arguments usually start when they feel unheard. This insight is valuable, but it only matters if they act on it. At their next meeting, they might say, "I feel upset when I don't get a chance to finish my thoughts." This small act of honesty can shift the dynamic between them. Without speaking up, the cycle continues. Sometimes, action itself deepens reflection. Picture a person who wants to learn a new skill, like painting. They could read books and watch videos for months, but until they pick up a brush and paint, their understanding stays theoretical. Once they start, they notice things they never considered, like how colors blend differently on canvas, or how certain brushes create unique textures. Each attempt teaches them something new, leading to deeper insight. reflection grows richer when it is paired with doing. Fear often blocks the path from thought to action. People fear failing, looking foolish, or facing judgment. These fears are natural, but they can be managed. One way to move forward is to focus on the next small step instead of the entire journey. If someone wants to run a marathon, they do not start by running 26 miles. They begin by jogging around the block. Each small action builds confidence and reduces fear. Another obstacle is distraction. In a world full of constant noise, it is easy to lose focus. Someone might reflect deeply on a goal, feel inspired, and then immediately get pulled into messages, news, or chores. By the end of the day, the insight is forgotten. Creating routines and boundaries helps protect the space between thought and action. This might mean setting aside a specific time each day to work on a project or turning off devices during important tasks. Accountability can also support action. Sharing intentions with another person creates a sense of responsibility. Imagine someone who decides to write every morning. If they tell a friend about their goal and agree to check in each week, they are more likely to follow through. The simple act of speaking their plan out loud turns a private reflection into a shared commitment. Action often brings unexpected results. A person might take a step in one direction and discover opportunities they never considered. For example, someone volunteers at a local community center because they want to give back. While there, they meet people who introduce them to new ideas and potential careers. That single act of service opens doors they did not know existed. Reflection alone could not have predicted these outcomes. Turning thought into action is not about constant motion. It is about alignment. When your actions match your insights, life feels coherent. You begin to live in a way that reflects what you believe. Imagine a person who values kindness but never takes time to help others. Their reflection and behavior are out of sync. When they start small acts of care, like checking in on a neighbor or offering a listening ear, they bridge the gap between inner values and outer actions. Each decision, no matter how small, is a chance to embody what you have learned. Reflection gives you the map. Action takes you down the path. Without both, you remain stuck in place. By moving forward, you give your thoughts shape and weight. You turn quiet understanding into visible change. Time moves whether we notice it or not. It flows like a river, constant and unstoppable, carrying us from one moment to the next. Most days, we rush through life without thinking about it. We look at clocks, count hours, and make schedules, but we rarely stop to consider what time really means. When we pause and reflect, we begin to see that time is not just a tool for planning. It shapes every part of our experience and reminds us that nothing lasts forever. Imagine standing by a riverbank, watching the water move past you. You cannot hold on to a single drop. The water that passes is gone forever, replaced by new currents. Life works in the same way. A moment happens and then it disappears. Birthdays, conversations, quiet afternoons, all slip away, no matter how much we wish they would stay. This truth can be unsettling, but it also brings clarity. When you understand that each moment is temporary, you start to pay attention in a different way. Think about how childhood feels. When you are young, summer days seem endless. A year feels like a lifetime. As you grow older, time seems to speed up. Weeks blur into months, and months blur into years. The difference is not in the clock itself, but in your perception. New experiences stretch time because they require focus and attention. Routine compresses time because your mind moves through it without noticing. A person who travels to a new country for the first time may feel like a single week lasts forever because every sight and sound is fresh. The same week spent doing repetitive tasks might pass in a blink. This awareness can help you slow down your experience of time. By paying close attention, you can make moments feel richer and longer. Imagine sitting at a table eating dinner. If you eat quickly while checking messages, the meal disappears without notice. If you pause, taste each bite, and listen to the people around you, that same meal expands. It becomes a memory rather than just another task. Time feels deeper when you are fully present. Impermanence is both a challenge and a gift. It means that nothing stays the same, including joy and pain. A person going through heartbreak may feel like the sadness will never end, but time moves and feelings shift. On the other hand, a moment of happiness cannot last forever either. A perfect day at the beach, a baby's first laugh, a shared sunset, all are temporary. This truth can bring sadness, but it also makes these moments precious. If everything lasted forever, we might take it for granted. Consider a parent watching their child take their first steps. In that instant, they know the moment will never return. The child will keep growing, and the parent will never again see that exact step. The fleeting nature of the event makes it deeply meaningful. This is the paradox of time. Its flow both creates and destroys the moments we cherish. Time also shapes our choices. Knowing that life is limited pushes us to prioritize. Imagine someone who spends years putting off a dream, telling themselves they will pursue it one day. Then they reach a milestone birthday and realize that decades have passed. This awareness can spark change. They might finally take that trip, start that project, or tell someone they love them. Passing of time becomes a motivator, turning vague intentions into urgent actions. Sometimes, people ignore the flow of time until something forces them to confront it. A serious illness, a loss, or even a simple reunion can make the years visible all at once. Picture attending a high school reunion. You see friends you have not spoken to in decades. Everyone has changed, yet they are also the same. In that moment, you feel the weight of time. You realize how quickly it has passed and how much of it you cannot get back. This realization can be painful, but it can also inspire gratitude for the moments you still have. Living fully in the present does not mean ignoring the past or future. It means recognizing where you are right now while understanding that both past and future are part of the same flow. The past shapes you, but it no longer exists except in memory. The future has not yet arrived, though you plan and prepare for it. The only place you can truly act is the present. Imagine standing in a river with one foot on the bank behind you and one foot reaching forward. If you focus too much on either bank, you lose balance. Staying centered in the current allows you to move steadily. This perspective can change how you approach everyday life. Instead of rushing through tasks to get to the next thing, you can fully experience each step. Washing dishes becomes more than cleaning plates. It becomes a moment to feel the warm water, notice the shapes of the dishes, and breathe. Even small acts gain depth when you bring awareness to them. Time's impermanence can also guide relationships. Knowing that every interaction may be the last of its kind makes you more patient and compassionate. Imagine arguing with a loved one and then remembering that no moment is guaranteed. This awareness can soften anger and encourage forgiveness. You may choose to let go of small grudges because you see the bigger picture. Technology often pulls attention away from the present. People scroll through phones while walking, eating, or sitting with friends. This constant distraction makes time feel fragmented. Hours pass without awareness. To reconnect with the flow of time, you must create space free from interruption. This might mean turning off devices during meals or setting aside time each day for silence. These simple acts bring focus back to what is happening now. There is also a practical side to understanding time. Planning is necessary for survival, but plans must remain flexible. Life rarely unfolds exactly as expected. Imagine a farmer planting crops. They work hard to prepare the soil and tend the seeds, but they cannot control the rain or sun. They act in the present while staying open to change. In the same way, you can plan for the future while accepting that it will never be fully under your control. The flow of time includes cycles as well as forward motion. Days turn into nights, seasons shift, and generations rise and fall. These cycles create rhythm. Watching them can bring comfort. A harsh winter ends, making way for spring. A difficult chapter in life eventually gives way to renewal. Even when things feel stuck, time keeps moving. Some moments seem to stretch beyond time. Think about standing at the edge of the ocean, watching waves crash again and again. For a while, the clock disappears. You feel connected to something larger than yourself. These timeless experiences often come when you are fully present, open to the world without judgment or distraction. Understanding time is not about controlling it. You cannot stop the river or slow its current. But you can choose how you move within it. You can notice the beauty of each passing moment instead of rushing blindly ahead. By seeing time clearly, you begin to live with intention. You stop taking moments for granted and start treating them as the rare, fleeting gifts they are. Each day becomes part of a larger flow, carrying you forward into the unknown, one moment at a time. Standing beneath a night sky filled with stars has a way of making you quiet. You look up and see countless points of light scattered across the dark, each one a sun burning far away. Some of those stars may already be gone, their light only now reaching you after traveling through space for thousands or even millions of years. In that moment, you feel both awe and smallness. Your own problems and worries seem tiny compared to the vastness above you. This feeling is the beginning of humility. When you think deeply about your place in the universe, it becomes clear how brief and fragile human life is. The planet we live on spins through space, part of a galaxy filled with billions of other stars. Beyond that, there are billions of other galaxies. The scale is almost impossible to imagine. Picture a grain of sand on a wide beach. That single grain represents Earth compared to the whole cosmos. Realizing this does not make life meaningless. Instead, it puts life into perspective. Consider how easily we get caught up in small conflicts. A coworker's rude comment, a delayed train, a minor mistake. These can feel overwhelming in the moment. But when you zoom out and see them against the backdrop of an entire universe, they lose their weight. It is like looking at a map from far above. Tiny streets and houses blend together into a single pattern. From that distance, the fight you had earlier in the day seems less urgent. Humility does not mean thinking you are worthless. It means recognizing that you are part of something much larger than yourself. Imagine standing on the shore, watching waves roll in. Each wave rises, moves forward, and then disappears back into the sea. Your life is like one of those waves. It has shape and motion for a time, but is also connected to the larger ocean. Seeing this connection can bring gratitude. Even though your wave will not last forever, it is part of a vast and beautiful whole. Gratitude often grows from perspective. When you realize how rare and fragile life is, even ordinary moments become precious. Think about the odds of you existing at all. Generations of ancestors had to survive and meet for you to be born. The earth had to form in just the right way to support life. The sun had to burn steadily for billions of years. When you trace this chain of events, you begin to see that life itself is a gift. A cup of tea, a conversation with a friend, the feeling of sunlight on your skin. All of these small experiences take on deeper meaning when viewed through this lens. History also offers perspective. Many people lived before you, each with their own hopes, struggles, and dreams. Entire empires rose and fell, leaving behind ruins and stories. Think about the ancient builders who constructed pyramids or temples. Their names are mostly forgotten, yet their work still stands. Someday, the same will happen to the structures we build now. This thought can be humbling. It reminds you that your time here is temporary, but it also connects you to those who came before. You are part of an unbroken chain of lives stretching back through history. Humility grows when you see how much remains unknown. Humans have mapped the stars, explored the oceans, and decoded parts of the human genome, yet there is still so much mystery. Scientists estimate that most of the universe is made up of dark matter and dark energy, things we cannot see or fully understand. Even on Earth, there are species, ecosystems, and processes we have yet to discover. This vast unknown shows the limits of human knowledge. Recognizing those limits encourages curiosity instead of arrogance. Consider how perspective changes behavior. A leader who sees themselves as the center of everything might act with greed or pride. They may believe their decisions are more important than anyone else's. But a leader who understands their small place in the universe will act with care. They know their choices affect others and will be remembered long after they are gone. This awareness fosters responsibility. It encourages decisions based on the greater good rather than personal gain. Humility can also help during moments of personal failure. When you make a mistake, it can feel like the end of the world. Shame and regret may seem unbearable. But when you step back and see the bigger picture, you realize that mistakes are part of the human experience. Generations before you made errors, learned, and moved forward. Your failure is not unique or final. It is a single event in a much larger story. This perspective makes it easier to forgive yourself and try again. Think about someone climbing a mountain. As they ascend, their view changes. At the base, they can only see the trees and rocks around them. Halfway up, they see valleys and rivers stretching out below. At the peak, the entire landscape comes into view. Life works the same way. When you are close to a problem, it fills your vision. When you gain perspective, you see it as one small part of a larger whole. Humility is like standing at the peak. It does not erase the problem, but it changes how you relate to it. Nature often provides this sense of scale. Walking through a forest filled with towering trees, you feel the slow passage of time. Some of those trees began growing centuries before you were born. Their roots and branches have witnessed countless seasons. In their presence, your daily worries feel small. Similarly, standing at the edge of the ocean or looking out at a mountain range reminds you of forces far bigger than human plans. These experiences can shift your mindset without a single word being spoken. Humility does not remove ambition or passion. You can still strive for goals and work hard. The difference is that you no longer see yourself as separate from the world around you. You understand that your actions ripple outward, affecting others in ways you may never see. A single kind gesture might inspire change that continues long after you are gone. By keeping perspective, you act with intention rather than ego. Technology often narrows perspective. Constant updates, notifications, and headlines make small events feel enormous. A social media post can seem like a crisis. A minor inconvenience can dominate your attention. Stepping back from these constant signals allows you to see the bigger picture again. It is like walking out of a crowded room into an open field. Suddenly you can breathe. Gratitude naturally follows humility. When you understand how vast and interconnected life is, you begin to appreciate even simple things. A shared meal becomes more than food. It is the result of farmers, cooks, and countless natural processes. A walk outside becomes more than exercise. It is a chance to participate in a living world. This shift does not require grand gestures. It grows quietly, moment by moment, as you notice what is already here. Humility through perspective helps you navigate both joy and sorrow. When good things happen, you celebrate without believing you caused them alone. When hardships come, you endure without believing they define you completely. You begin to see yourself as part of a larger story that continues long after you are gone. In this view, life becomes not just about individual success or failure, but about connection, gratitude, and shared existence. Some truths are easy to accept. They fit neatly into the way you already see the world. They confirm what you believe and bring comfort. Other truths are not so simple. They challenge your view of yourself, of others, or of life itself. These truths are often the ones that matter most because they force you to grow. Facing them can be painful, but avoiding them only creates deeper problems over time. Imagine standing in front of a mirror. At first, you see what you expect, a reflection that feels familiar. Then the light shifts, and you notice details you missed before. Maybe you see signs of age, fatigue, or emotions you have been hiding from yourself. This moment of clarity can be unsettling. You cannot unsee what you now recognize. Uncomfortable truths work in the same way. Once they come into focus, they demand attention. Consider a person who has always thought of themselves as kind and fair. One day, they hear feedback from a coworker who says their behavior often comes across as dismissive or harsh. The first reaction might be denial. They may think, "That's not me, they're wrong." But later, in quiet reflection, they recall moments when they interrupted others or brushed off concerns. Accepting this truth hurts because it cracks their image of who they are. Yet this awareness gives them a chance to change. Without facing it, they would keep repeating the same patterns, unaware of the harm they cause. Some truths challenge the way you see the world itself. Imagine growing up with certain beliefs about justice, opportunity, or equality. These beliefs shape how you interpret events. Then you encounter evidence that contradicts them. Maybe you read a story about systemic injustice or witness unfair treatment firsthand. The realization that the world is not as fair as you believed can create anger, sadness, or confusion. It feels like the ground beneath you has shifted. In that moment, you face a choice: turn away and cling to comfort, or look closer and allow your worldview to expand. Facing uncomfortable truths often requires humility. It means admitting that you do not have all the answers. Many people resist this because it feels like weakness. But refusing to see the truth does not make it disappear. It only delays the pain. Think about a cracked foundation in a house. You can cover it with paint and pretend it isn't there, but the structure will keep weakening. Only by looking at the damage directly can you begin to repair it. Relationships reveal many difficult truths. Imagine a couple who has been together for years. On the surface, everything seems fine. They share routines and conversations. But deep down, one partner feels distant. They realize they have been staying in the relationship out of habit rather than love. Admitting this to themselves is painful because it will lead to hard choices, ending the relationship or working to rebuild it. Ignoring the truth might seem easier, but over time, resentment will grow. Facing it is the first step toward either healing or moving on. Another example comes from health. A person might ignore symptoms for months because they fear what a diagnosis could reveal. They convince themselves the pain is minor or temporary. When they finally see a doctor, they may hear news that is difficult to accept. While the truth is frightening, knowing it allows them to take action. In this case, denial delays care and can make things worse. Facing reality, no matter how harsh, opens the door to solutions. Sometimes the hardest truths are about limitations. Many people grow up believing they can do anything if they try hard enough. This belief can be motivating, but it is not always accurate. A person might dream of becoming a professional athlete or musician, only to realize they do not have the necessary skills or physical abilities. Accepting this truth can feel like failure. Yet it also frees them to explore other paths where they can thrive. Holding on to an impossible dream keeps them stuck. Letting go makes room for new possibilities. Uncomfortable truths also emerge on a larger scale, like climate change or social injustice. These realities are complex and overwhelming. It can feel easier to ignore them or believe they are someone else's problem. But avoidance does not stop the effects. Facing these truths pushes individuals and communities to act. For example, learning about environmental damage might lead someone to change how they consume resources or support policies that protect nature. The discomfort of acknowledging the problem becomes the fuel for change. Deep thinking helps you confront truths because it slows down your reactions. When you first encounter a difficult fact, you may feel defensive or angry. These feelings act like a shield. If you sit with them instead of lashing out or turning away, you can begin to see what lies beneath. Imagine peeling layers from an onion. The outer layers sting your eyes, but each layer brings you closer to the core. The process takes patience and courage. Facing the truth often involves grief. You might grieve the loss of a belief, a relationship, or a version of yourself. This grief is natural. It marks the transition between old and new ways of seeing. Picture a tree shedding leaves in autumn. The bare branches may look stark and empty, but they create space for new growth in spring. In the same way, letting go of illusions clears the way for deeper understanding. Support from others can make this process easier. Speaking an uncomfortable truth out loud often reduces its power. Imagine someone who has hidden a secret for years. The secret weighs on them, shaping their behavior and thoughts. When they finally share it with a trusted friend or counselor, the burden lightens. The truth does not change, but it becomes less isolating. Others can offer perspective and compassion that help you face what feels unbearable alone. Action grows out of truth. Once you see things clearly, you cannot stay in the same place. A person who recognizes they are in a harmful job may begin searching for new opportunities. Someone who admits they have hurt another person may choose to apologize and make amends. Each step forward requires honesty. Without it, actions are built on shaky ground. There are moments when truth arrives gradually. You may notice small hints over time, a comment, a feeling, a pattern. At first, you brush them aside. Then, slowly, they form a picture you can no longer ignore. This slow unfolding can be both gentle and relentless. By the time you fully see the truth, you realize it has been present all along, waiting for you to acknowledge it. The deepest insights often change you in ways you cannot predict. They strip away false certainty and replace it with clarity. This clarity does not always feel pleasant. It can leave you raw and unsteady, but it also opens the door to freedom. When you stop pretending and start seeing things as they are, you gain the power to act with integrity. Even when the truth hurts, it becomes the ground you stand on as you grow. Knowing yourself is one of the most important parts of growing as a person. Self-awareness is the process of seeing yourself clearly, your thoughts, feelings, habits, and the reasons behind them. It's like holding up a mirror, not just to your appearance, but to your inner world. This kind of reflection takes patience and honesty. It's not always comfortable because you might see parts of yourself you would rather ignore. But without it, you move through life on autopilot, reacting to situations without understanding why. Imagine someone who gets angry every time they are criticized, even when the feedback is fair. On the surface, it might look like they simply have a temper, but if they take time to reflect, they might discover that their anger comes from a deeper place. Perhaps they grew up in a home where mistakes were punished harshly, so criticism now feels like a threat rather than an opportunity to learn. By uncovering this connection, they gain insight. They can begin to respond differently instead of repeating the same reaction over and over. Self-awareness begins with paying attention. Most of the time, people rush through their days without noticing what drives their actions. They follow routines, speak out of habit, and make choices based on old patterns. Reflection slows this process down. It creates space to ask simple questions like, why did I feel that way? Or what was I trying to achieve in that moment? These questions reveal the motivations that often stay hidden beneath the surface. Consider a person who spends a lot of money on clothes they don't need. At first, it may seem like they simply enjoy shopping, but when they dig deeper, they might realize they are buying things to fill an emotional gap. Maybe new clothes give them a brief feeling of confidence or control. Once they understand this, they can address the real need instead of just covering it up with purchases. Emotional triggers are another key part of self-awareness. A trigger is something that sparks a strong reaction, often out of proportion to the situation. These reactions can lead to conflict or regret if left unchecked. For example, someone might feel hurt when a friend cancels plans, not just because of the cancellation itself, but because it reminds them of past experiences of rejection. By recognizing this pattern, they can separate the present moment from old wounds. Instead of lashing out, they can communicate calmly and explain their feelings. Building self-awareness requires observing both your thoughts and your body. Emotions often show up physically before you even notice them in your mind. Anxiety might appear as a tight chest or clenched jaw. Anger might bring heat to your face or tension in your shoulders. By noticing these signals, you can pause before reacting. This pause is powerful. It gives you a chance to choose your response instead of being controlled by instinct. Some people use journaling as a tool for self-reflection. Writing down thoughts and experiences helps clarify them. It creates a record you can look back on to see patterns over time. Imagine reading an entry from 6 months ago and realizing you were struggling with the same issue then as you are now. This realization can push you to take new action instead of staying stuck. Conversations with others also play a role in self-awareness. Sometimes, the people around you can see things you miss. A trusted friend, mentor, or therapist can offer feedback that helps you grow. This requires openness. If you immediately reject what others say, you miss valuable insight. Listening does not mean you must agree with everything, but it helps you see yourself from another perspective. Self-awareness is not only about identifying weaknesses, it also means understanding your strengths and values. When you know what you care about most, decision-making becomes clearer. Imagine someone who values creativity but has been working in a rigid corporate job. Through reflection, they realize why they feel drained every day. This awareness helps them make changes, whether by finding a more creative role or bringing creativity into their current work. Daily life offers many chances to practice self-awareness. For instance, after a heated conversation, you can take a few minutes to reflect. What did you feel during the exchange? What words or actions triggered those feelings? What do you wish you had done differently? Over time, these small reflections add up. They make you more thoughtful and intentional in future interactions. Self-awareness also influences relationships. When you understand your own patterns, you communicate more clearly and avoid unnecessary conflict. Imagine two friends planning a trip. One likes detailed schedules, while the other prefers to go with the flow. Without self-awareness, each might see the other as difficult or controlling. With self-awareness, they recognize their own preferences and explain them calmly. This reduces tension and helps them find a balance. Workplaces benefit from self-aware individuals as well. A manager who understands their own stress triggers is less likely to take frustration out on their team. An employee who knows their strengths can seek projects that fit their skills, leading to better results. Teams built on this kind of awareness tend to be more productive and cooperative. The process of building self-awareness is ongoing. It is not something you achieve once and then forget about. Life keeps changing, and new experiences bring new lessons. Imagine a parent who believes they are patient and calm. When their child reaches a difficult stage, they may discover limits they never noticed before. This challenge pushes them to reflect and grow further. Resistance is common when facing uncomfortable truths about yourself. You might notice a flaw and feel tempted to deny it or blame others. For example, someone who struggles with jealousy might convince themselves that others are simply untrustworthy. Avoiding responsibility protects the ego in the short term, but it blocks growth. Honest reflection requires courage. It means saying, "This is my reaction, and I need to understand it." Mindfulness practices can support this work. Taking a few minutes each day to sit quietly and focus on your breath helps you notice thoughts as they arise. Instead of being swept away by them, you observe them like clouds passing in the sky. This simple habit builds awareness and creates space between stimulus and response. Real-world examples show the power of self-awareness. Think about an athlete preparing for a major competition. They know their physical skills are important, but they also study their mental patterns. They notice when fear creeps in, when focus slips, and when confidence peaks. By understanding these inner states, they can adjust in the moment and perform at their best. Or consider someone in a leadership role. Without self-awareness, they might make decisions based purely on pressure or ego. With it, they can recognize when their judgment is clouded and seek input from others. This makes them a more effective and trustworthy leader. Self-awareness also helps in times of stress or crisis. When life feels overwhelming, it is easy to spiral into reaction mode. By staying aware of your feelings and triggers, you can pause and respond more skillfully. Imagine being stuck in traffic on the way to an important meeting. Without awareness, frustration builds until it explodes. With awareness, you notice the tension rising and take a deep breath. You remind yourself that you cannot control the traffic, only your response to it. This shift changes the entire experience. Over time, self-awareness creates a sense of alignment. Your actions begin to match your values and intentions. You stop living on autopilot and start living with purpose. This does not mean you never make mistakes. It means you notice them quickly and learn from them. Each moment becomes an opportunity to understand yourself better and move forward with clarity. Much of what we do each day comes from beliefs we do not even realize we hold. These are subconscious beliefs, quiet forces that sit beneath our thoughts and decisions. They shape how we see the world and how we respond to it, often without our awareness. Because they are hidden, they can guide our lives in ways we never question. Deep thinking helps bring these beliefs into the light, giving us the chance to examine them and choose whether they still serve us. Imagine someone who always avoids conflict. Whenever tension rises, they change the subject, stay silent, or walk away. On the surface, it might look like they simply dislike arguments. But beneath this pattern, there could be a deeper belief. If I express anger, people will leave me. Maybe this belief formed in childhood, when expressing strong emotions led to rejection or punishment. As an adult, the person continues to act on this belief without realizing it. They miss chances to stand up for themselves or to solve problems directly because a hidden rule is steering their actions. These subconscious beliefs often start early. As children, we watch how caregivers and authority figures respond to us. Their words and actions become the first messages we internalize about who we are and how the world works. A child praised only when they achieve perfect grades might grow up believing, "I am only valuable when I succeed." A child who hears constant criticism might form the belief, "I am not good enough." These ideas settle deep in the mind, where they influence behavior for years to come. Over time, these beliefs become so familiar that we mistake them for reality. Imagine wearing tinted glasses your whole life. The world would always appear in that color. You might forget that the tint is there at all. Subconscious beliefs work the same way. They color your perception so completely that you assume everyone sees the world as you do. Only when you pause and reflect do you begin to notice the lens itself. Some subconscious beliefs are helpful. They guide us to act with kindness, protect ourselves from harm, or stay motivated in difficult times. Others limit us. A person who believes they are unworthy of love might sabotage relationships without knowing why. Someone who believes the world is unsafe might avoid new experiences, missing out on growth. These beliefs do not announce themselves. They whisper quietly, shaping choices in subtle ways. Deep thinking creates space to listen for these whispers. Start by noticing patterns. When a certain type of situation always triggers a strong reaction, there is usually a belief beneath it. For example, a person might feel intense anxiety before public speaking. On the surface, it seems like stage fright, but if they explore deeper, they might uncover a belief like, if I make a mistake, everyone will reject me. Recognizing this belief changes the experience. Instead of battling random fear, they can address the core story driving it. Dreams sometimes reveal hidden beliefs. The subconscious speaks in symbols, and dreams can bring those symbols to the surface. Imagine someone who repeatedly dreams of being trapped in a small room. At first, it seems meaningless, but with reflection, they realize it mirrors a feeling in their daily life, perhaps a belief that they are stuck in a career or relationship with no way out. By paying attention, they gain insight into what their deeper mind is trying to express. Journaling can also help uncover subconscious beliefs. Writing freely about thoughts and feelings often brings buried ideas into view. For instance, someone might write about a recent disappointment and suddenly notice the phrase, "I should have known better. I always mess things up." That single sentence reveals a core belief about failure and self-blame. Once visible, it can be questioned and rewritten. Relationships often act as mirrors. The way you react to others can expose what you believe about yourself. If someone's success makes you feel small, you might hold a hidden belief that worth comes from comparison. If a friend's anger terrifies you, you might carry a belief that anger always leads to harm. These moments of discomfort are clues. They point toward the stories you are carrying inside. Challenging subconscious beliefs takes patience. The mind resists change, especially when a belief has been in place for many years. Imagine a path through a field that has been walked on for decades. The ground is worn and smooth. Creating a new path takes effort and repetition. At first, you slip back to the old route without thinking. But with time and practice, the new path becomes clearer. In the same way, questioning and replacing a belief is not a single event, but an ongoing process. To begin, you can simply ask, is this true? Suppose you notice yourself thinking, I must always make others happy, or they will leave me. When you hold this belief up to the light, you might recall times when people stayed, even after you set boundaries. This evidence begins to weaken the old story. You can then replace it with a more balanced belief, like, I can care for others while also caring for myself. Sometimes these hidden beliefs reveal themselves in the body before the mind catches up. A tight chest, a sinking stomach, or sudden tears can signal that an old story is being triggered. For example, a person might feel panic during a harmless conversation because something said reminds them of past rejection. By tuning into these physical reactions, you can trace them back to the beliefs underneath. Cultural messages also shape subconscious beliefs. Society sends countless signals about gender, success, beauty, and worth. These messages seep into the mind without our consent. A person might believe they must always appear strong because they grew up in a culture that sees vulnerability as weakness. Another might believe their value depends on productivity because of constant praise for working long hours. By questioning these inherited beliefs, you begin to see where they came from and whether they are truly yours. Uncovering these deep patterns often brings mixed emotions. There can be sadness when you realize how much of your life was shaped by unexamined rules. There can also be relief. Once a belief is visible, it no longer has complete control. It becomes something you can engage with rather than something that silently drives you. Imagine someone who has always avoided leadership roles because they believed, "I'm not the kind of person others follow." Through reflection and feedback, they begin to see this belief clearly. They trace it back to a childhood moment when a teacher dismissed their ideas. For years, that memory shaped their choices without them knowing. With this awareness, they decide to take on a small leadership task. The experience goes well, offering new evidence to challenge the old belief. Step by step, they build a new story about themselves. This process is not about erasing every subconscious belief. So will always remain. The goal is to bring awareness to the ones that matter most, especially those that limit growth or cause harm. When you shine light on these hidden forces, you gain freedom. Instead of being controlled by invisible rules, you choose your path with intention. The mind is like a vast ocean. The surface represents conscious thought, the ideas you see and understand. Beneath that surface lies a deep, dark space full of currents and creatures you rarely glimpse. Deep thinking is like diving below the waves. It allows you to explore what lives in the depths, to discover the hidden shapes moving silently beneath you. By making the unseen seen, you gain the power to navigate your own waters with greater clarity and strength. Change begins in the mind, long before it shows up in actions or habits. A single deep realization can set off a chain reaction that shifts how you think, feel, and behave. Personal transformation often starts quietly, with a thought that challenges how you see yourself or the world. Over time, that thought grows stronger until it pushes you to act. It is rarely sudden. More often, it builds slowly, like water wearing away at stone, until one day you notice that you are not the same person you once were. Imagine someone who has spent years in a job they dislike. Each morning they wake up with a sense of dread, but they convince themselves this is just how life is. Then, during a conversation with a friend, they have a moment of clarity. They realize they have been living according to other people's expectations rather than their own. That single thought begins to shift their perspective. At first, nothing looks different on the outside. They still go to work, follow routines, and keep up appearances. But inside, they are questioning everything. This inner questioning is the seed of transformation. The process continues as they start to notice patterns. They see how fear has kept them from making bold choices. They see how their definition of success was shaped by their family and culture rather than their true desires. These realizations are uncomfortable, but they are also freeing. With each new layer of understanding, they gain more courage to imagine a different life. Eventually, the pressure builds to a point where staying the same feels harder than changing. This is when thought turns into action. Transformation often begins with small steps. The person might take a class in a subject they have always been curious about, or start saving money for a future transition. These actions are like ripples spreading outward. Each one reinforces the inner shift, showing them that change is possible. Over time, these small actions add up to something much larger. They may leave the job entirely, move to a new city, or create a career that aligns with their values. Looking back, they can trace it all to that single, profound moment of thought. Growth requires letting go of old beliefs. Many people carry ideas about themselves that no longer fit. Someone might believe they are shy because they were quiet as a child. Another might think they are uncreative because of a single piece of criticism they received years ago. These beliefs act like walls, keeping them stuck in familiar patterns. When a deep realization cracks one of these walls, it creates space for something new. For example, a person might speak up in a meeting and realize they are not as shy as they believed. That moment challenges their old identity and invites them to grow. Transformation can also come from facing hardship. Difficult experiences often force deep reflection. Imagine someone going through a painful breakup. At first, they focus only on the loss, but as time passes, they begin to see how their old patterns contributed to the relationship's problems. They realize they ignored red flags, avoided hard conversations, or gave up parts of themselves to keep the peace. This self-awareness is painful, but it lays the groundwork for future growth. When they enter their next relationship, they bring new clarity and boundaries. The suffering, while unwelcome, becomes a catalyst for transformation. External events can spark inner change, but the real work happens inside. You cannot control every challenge life brings, but you can control how you respond. Two people might face the same event and come away with completely different lessons. The difference lies in how deeply they reflect on it. Someone who avoids reflection may repeat the same mistakes. Someone who thinks deeply may use the experience to evolve. Transformation often involves a period of discomfort. You are leaving behind old ways of being, but have not yet fully stepped into the new. This middle ground can feel confusing and unstable. Imagine a snake shedding its skin. During the process, the snake is vulnerable. It cannot move easily, and its vision is clouded. Humans go through a similar stage during growth. The old identity no longer fits, but the new one is not yet fully formed. Patience and persistence are crucial here. Support from others can make this journey easier. Friends, mentors, or therapists can offer perspective when your own view is clouded. They can remind you of your progress when you feel stuck. Imagine someone training for a marathon. On their own, they might give up when the runs get difficult. With a supportive group, they push through the discomfort and keep going. Personal transformation works the same way. Having others who believe in you strengthens your resolve. Sometimes, transformation happens in layers. You might think you have finished growing in one area, only to discover another layer beneath it. Consider someone who works on building confidence. They start by speaking up in meetings, which feels like a major step. Later, they realize confidence is not just about words, but about deeply believing in their worth. They begin exploring old wounds and hidden fears. Each layer brings them closer to their authentic self. Taking action is a vital part of transformation. Reflection alone is not enough. A person can spend years thinking about change without making it real. Imagine someone who dreams of writing a novel. They read books about writing, attend workshops, and daydream about their story. But until they sit down and write the first page, nothing shifts. The act of doing brings ideas into reality. Even imperfect action teaches valuable lessons and builds momentum. Transformation also involves making choices aligned with new insights. Suppose someone realizes they have been overcommitted because they fear disappointing others. Once they see this clearly, they face decisions. They might start saying no to extra responsibilities, even when it feels uncomfortable. Each no reinforces their new understanding and creates space for what truly matters. Over time, these choices reshape their life. There is often resistance to change, even when the change is positive. The mind clings to what is familiar, even if it causes pain. A person might stay in a bad situation simply because it feels safe. Deep thinking helps you recognize this resistance without letting it control you. By observing your fears, you can move forward despite them. For example, someone leaving a long-term job might feel terrified of the unknown. If they see the fear as a natural response rather than a sign to stop, they can keep taking steps toward their vision. Transformation is rarely linear. There are setbacks, doubts, and moments when progress feels invisible. It is like climbing a mountain through fog. Sometimes you see the peak clearly, and other times you can only focus on the next step. In these moments, it helps to remember that even small actions count. Each step, no matter how small, moves you closer to lasting change. Looking back on a period of transformation, it often feels inevitable. The path seems clear in hindsight, even though it felt messy in the moment. A person might think, "Of course I ended up here. It all makes sense now." But at the time, they faced uncertainty and fear. Remembering this helps when you are in the middle of your own growth. The clarity will come later. For now, it is enough to keep moving forward, guided by the deep thoughts that first lit the way. Understanding yourself requires more than just knowing what you want or how you feel. It also means seeing clearly what you do well and where you struggle. Many people avoid this kind of reflection because it can be uncomfortable. It is pleasant to think about strengths, but facing weaknesses often stirs feelings of shame or frustration. Still, both are necessary. Without an honest view of your abilities, you cannot grow or make choices that fit who you are. Recognizing strengths and weaknesses creates a foundation for meaningful change. Imagine someone who believes they are a strong communicator because they talk a lot in meetings. On the surface, this might seem like confidence, but through reflection, they realize that speaking often is not the same as listening well or expressing ideas clearly. They may even notice that their coworkers tune out when they dominate the conversation. This realization stings, but it opens the door to improvement. They can start to practice active listening and work on sharing their ideas in a more focused way. Without this moment of self-awareness, they would continue repeating the same ineffective behavior, thinking it was a strength. Strengths often come naturally, so much so that you may overlook them. A person who is calm under pressure might not see this as a skill because it feels normal to them. They only recognize it when others point it out or when they notice how differently people around them react in stressful situations. For example, during a workplace crisis, while everyone else panics, this person stays steady and helps others focus. What they see as simply being themselves is actually a valuable strength that supports the entire team. Weaknesses, on the other hand, often hide beneath excuses or distractions. A person who struggles with time management might tell themselves they simply work better under pressure. In truth, they may be avoiding the discomfort of planning and organization. Reflection forces you to look past these stories. It helps you see the patterns that keep you stuck. When you admit a weakness, you take the first step toward addressing it. Feedback from others can reveal both strengths and weaknesses you cannot see on your own. Imagine a young teacher who believes they are doing well because their students seem happy. Then, during a review, a colleague points out that while the class enjoys the lessons, the students are not retaining key concepts. At first, the teacher feels defensive, but after some thought, they realize the feedback is accurate. This moment allows them to adjust their teaching style and grow into a more effective educator. Without outside perspective, they would have stayed unaware of this gap. Sometimes strengths and weaknesses are two sides of the same coin. A person who is highly detail-oriented might produce excellent, precise work. This same trait, however, can lead to overthinking and slow progress. Similarly, someone who is adventurous and willing to take risks might bring energy and innovation to a project, but also create instability if they act without planning. Recognizing these dual aspects helps you manage them. You can lean into the positive side of a trait while keeping its challenges in check. Reflection also shows how context matters. A skill that is a strength in one setting might be a weakness in another. Imagine someone who thrives in a fast-paced environment. They make quick decisions and adapt easily to change. These abilities shine in a startup company, where flexibility is key. But in a structured, rule-based organization, the same habits might be seen as impulsive or reckless. By understanding both themselves and their environment, they can decide whether to adjust or seek a better fit. To recognize strengths and weaknesses, you need to observe your reactions in different situations. Pay attention to the tasks that energize you versus those that drain you. If you feel motivated and confident, while solving complex problems. Problem solving may be one of your strengths. If you consistently avoid certain tasks or feel anxious while doing them, those areas may need attention. For instance, a person who feels excitement when brainstorming new ideas but dread when creating detailed reports has learned something valuable about their natural tendencies. Journaling can be a helpful tool in this process. Writing about daily experiences makes patterns easier to see. Over time, you may notice recurring themes. Perhaps you write often about moments when you helped others resolve conflicts. This could point to a strength in mediation and empathy. Or you might notice frequent frustration with planning and follow-through, highlighting a weakness in organization. Seeing these patterns on paper brings clarity that is harder to achieve in fleeting thoughts. Facing weaknesses requires courage. It is easy to hide behind pride or fear. Many people avoid confronting their flaws because they believe acknowledging them will make them seem incompetent. In reality, pretending weaknesses do not exist only makes them stronger. Imagine a company that ignores a small crack in its foundation. Over time, the crack grows until it threatens the entire structure. The same is true for personal development. Addressing weaknesses early prevents bigger problems later. Once a weakness is identified, it can be managed in different ways. Sometimes you can work to improve directly. A person who struggles with public speaking might take a class or practice regularly until they become more confident. Other times, it may make sense to seek support or create systems that minimize the impact. For example, someone who has difficulty staying organized might use planning tools or work closely with a partner who has strong organizational skills. Recognizing a weakness does not always mean you must fix it alone. Celebrating strengths is equally important. Many people focus so much on what they lack that they overlook what they do well. This imbalance can lead to low confidence and missed opportunities. Imagine an artist who constantly criticizes their technique but fails to see how their unique style resonates with others. By acknowledging their strengths, they gain the motivation to keep creating and sharing their work. Reflection should include appreciation for the abilities you already possess, not just scrutiny of flaws. Strengths can also guide your decisions about where to focus energy. If you know you excel at connecting with people, you might choose a career or project that relies on relationship building. If you are skilled at analyzing data, you might seek roles that make use of that talent. Aligning your choices with your strengths increases satisfaction and effectiveness. At the same time, knowing your weaknesses helps you anticipate challenges. If you understand that you tend to procrastinate, you can set up systems to counteract it before it becomes a major issue. Over time, strengths and weaknesses can shift. A skill you once lacked may grow through practice. A strength you relied on for years may fade if you neglect it. Reflection keeps you aware of these changes. Imagine a seasoned athlete who was once known for speed and agility. As they age, these physical strengths decline. By reflecting on their current abilities, they can adjust their strategy, focusing on experience and technique instead. This adaptability allows them to continue performing well despite the changes. Recognizing strengths and weaknesses creates a balanced, realistic view of yourself. It prevents both arrogance and self-doubt. Arrogance comes from focusing only on strengths and ignoring flaws. Self-doubt comes from fixating on weaknesses and overlooking abilities. A clear picture includes both. It allows you to navigate challenges with confidence while remaining open to growth. Through honest reflection, you see not only who you are today, but also who you can become. Living authentically begins with knowing yourself. It requires taking a close look at your values, beliefs, and desires, and then making choices that match them. Many people move through life following paths that were laid out by others. They take jobs, form relationships, and make decisions based on what family, culture, or society expects. At first, this can feel safe because there's a clear map to follow. But over time, a quiet sense of discomfort often grows. Something feels off, even if it is hard to explain. That feeling is a signal that you are living in a way that does not fully align with who you are inside. Imagine someone who has always been praised for being responsible and reliable. They choose a stable career in finance because it pleases their parents and fits the image others have of them. Years later, they wake up each morning with a heaviness they cannot shake. They do their work well, but it feels empty. During a rare moment of reflection, they realize that they have always loved writing and storytelling. These passions were pushed aside because they seemed impractical. The realization is painful because it means admitting they have been living a life shaped by expectations rather than by their true self. This moment of clarity is the first step toward authenticity. Deep thinking is essential in this process because it helps you separate your voice from the noise around you. Daily life is filled with messages about what you should want and who you should be. Advertisements, social media, and even well-meaning friends can influence you without your awareness. Without reflection, it is easy to confuse external pressure with inner truth. Taking time to think deeply creates space to ask questions like, what do I actually value? And what matters most to me when no one else is watching? These questions are not easy, but they lead to answers that feel solid and real. Living authentically does not mean rejecting all outside influence. Humans are social beings and relationships matter. It means making choices with awareness rather than automatically following others. For example, someone might choose to stay in a family business not because they feel trapped, but because they genuinely care about the work and the people involved. The decision is the same on the surface, but the motivation comes from a place of alignment rather than obligation. There is a certain vulnerability in living authentically. When you show your true self, you risk judgment or rejection. Some people may not understand your choices, especially if they challenge norms. Imagine a person who decides to leave a prestigious corporate job to become a teacher. Friends might question the decision, asking why they would give up status and higher pay. If this person has reflected deeply and knows teaching matches their values, they can stand firm despite the doubts of others. Their strength comes from clarity, not from trying to please everyone. Authenticity also shows up in smaller, everyday choices. It might mean speaking honestly in a conversation instead of saying what you think others want to hear. It could involve setting boundaries around your time or energy. For instance, if you value rest and connection, you might decline an invitation to yet another obligation-filled weekend, even if you fear disappointing someone. These decisions seem minor, but they build a life that reflects your true priorities. Sometimes, living authentically requires leaving situations that no longer fit. This could be a job, a friendship, or even a long-term relationship. The process is rarely easy. There may be guilt, fear, or grief involved. Imagine someone who has been in a partnership for many years. Over time, they realize that their values and goals have diverged from their partners. Staying would mean betraying themselves, but leaving feels terrifying. By listening to their inner voice and reflecting on what they need, they eventually make the difficult choice to part ways. Though painful, the decision honors their authenticity and creates space for growth. Self-awareness plays a key role in this journey. To live authentically, you must understand not just your values, but also your patterns and triggers. For example, someone might notice they often agree to requests out of fear of conflict. Recognizing this pattern allows them to pause and ask, do I really want to do this, or am I just avoiding discomfort? Over time, these small moments of honesty add up, creating a life that feels more genuine. Authenticity also involves accepting imperfection. Many people delay living fully because they wait to become flawless first. They think, once I'm more confident, or once I have it all figured out, then I'll be myself. But authenticity is not about perfection. It is about showing up as you are, even when you feel uncertain. Imagine an artist who hesitates to share their work because they fear criticism. If they wait until the art feels perfect, they may never share it at all. By showing their work anyway, they live in alignment with their creative values, even if others judge it. Reflection can reveal surprising truths. Sometimes, what you think you want turns out to be something you were taught to want. Consider someone who pursues wealth because they were told success means financial abundance. After years of striving, they achieve their goal but feel unfulfilled. Through deep thinking, they realize what they truly value is freedom and meaningful experiences, not luxury itself. With this understanding, they might change how they work and spend, creating a life that reflects their authentic desires rather than inherited beliefs. Living authentically does not happen all at once. It unfolds gradually through many small decisions. A person might begin by being honest with themselves about a single issue, like needing more rest. Over time, they extend that honesty to other areas like relationships and career. Each step builds on the last. Looking back, they may be amazed at how different their life feels, even though the changes were gradual. There will always be moments of doubt. Even when you are committed to living authentically, it is normal to question yourself. Others may challenge your choices or try to pull you back into old patterns. During these times, reflection helps you stay grounded. Returning to your values is like returning to a compass. It does not erase difficulty, but it gives you direction. An authentic life brings a quiet kind of peace. This peace does not mean the absence of struggle. It means the absence of inner conflict. When your actions match your values, you no longer feel like you are living two separate lives, one on the outside for others and one hidden inside. Imagine someone who once felt split in two, finally stepping into wholeness. Even when challenges arise, they face them with integrity because they are rooted in their truth. Examples of authenticity appear in many forms. A musician who writes songs that express their deepest feelings, even if they are not commercially popular, is living authentically. A parent who chooses to raise their children according to their own beliefs rather than outside judgment is living authentically. A student who changes majors to follow their passion instead of external pressure is doing the same. In each case, the common thread is alignment between inner truth and outer action. Authenticity does not isolate you from others. In fact, it deepens connections. When you are honest about who you are, you invite others to do the same. Relationships built on authenticity tend to be stronger because they are based on mutual trust rather than performance. A conversation between two people who are both being real carries a different kind of energy than one filled with masks and roles. Living authentically requires courage, reflection, and practice. It is a daily process of listening to yourself and making choices that honor what you hear. Over time, these choices shape a life that feels not only more meaningful, but also more free. You stop pretending and start existing as you truly are, creating a world that reflects your deepest values with every step you take. Knowing what matters most is only part of the journey. Acting in ways that match those priorities is where real integrity takes shape. Many people have a sense of their values, but struggle to live by them in daily life. They might say they value honesty, yet avoid difficult conversations. They might say family is important, yet spend all their time at work. These gaps between belief and behavior create inner conflict. Over time, that conflict can lead to frustration, guilt, or a sense that life feels hollow. Aligning actions with core values brings harmony. It creates a life that feels consistent and whole. Imagine someone who values health. They know exercise, sleep, and balanced meals matter to them. But each day, they skip workouts, stay up late scrolling on their phone, and grab fast food between meetings. At first, they tell themselves it is temporary, just part of a busy season. Weeks turn into months, and their body begins to show signs of stress. The problem is not lack of knowledge, it is a lack of alignment. Their actions contradict their stated value, and the result is discomfort. When they finally pause to reflect, they see the gap clearly. They begin making small adjustments, going to bed earlier, preparing simple meals, scheduling short walks. These changes bring their actions back in line with what they care about. The shift restores both physical well-being and inner peace. Clarity about values is essential before alignment can happen. Many people move through life following habits they inherited from family or culture without questioning whether those habits reflect their own beliefs. A person might say they value financial success because they grew up in a household where wealth was seen as the ultimate measure of achievement. But when they dig deeper, they may find what they truly value is security and freedom, not wealth itself. This distinction matters. If they chase money without understanding their real motivation, they may end up feeling empty even when they reach their goals. Reflection helps uncover these deeper truths. Imagine writing down a list of values like honesty, creativity, stability, love, and independence. Then think about which ones feel most alive when you live by them. For instance, if you feel energized after helping someone solve a problem, service may be a core value. If you feel drained when forced into rigid routines, freedom may rank higher. These insights provide a compass for decision-making. Without this clarity, it is easy to drift or to make choices that satisfy others but betray yourself. Once you know your values, the next step is to act on them consistently. This does not mean perfection. Life is complex, and circumstances can make it difficult to live your values in every moment. What matters is the overall pattern. Picture a parent who values quality time with their children. Some days, work demands may keep them away longer than they would like. Instead of giving up, they make an effort to be fully present when they are home. Putting away devices during dinner, listening carefully to their children's stories, and planning activities they can enjoy together. These actions, repeated over time, demonstrate commitment to their value of family connection. There are times when values collide, creating tough decisions. Imagine someone who values both honesty and kindness. A close friend asks for feedback on a new project, but the work has serious flaws. Total honesty might hurt the friend's feelings, while withholding the truth would feel false. In this case, the person must find a balance, perhaps by being truthful while choosing words with care. Living by values does not always mean simple answers. It often involves navigating gray areas with thoughtfulness. External pressures can make alignment challenging. Workplaces, communities, and even close relationships may push you toward behaviors that conflict with your values. Suppose you value fairness, but your job encourages cutting corners to maximize profit. At first, you might comply to avoid conflict. Over time, the mismatch becomes harder to ignore. You may feel stress or even physical symptoms as your inner and outer worlds clash. Discomfort is a signal. It tells you something needs to change. You might speak up, seek a compromise, or ultimately leave the situation to find a better fit. Small daily choices build alignment as much as big decisions do. Imagine someone who values environmental care. They might support this value not only by voting for policies, but also by carrying a reusable bag, reducing waste, and choosing sustainable products. These actions may seem minor, but they reinforce the value repeatedly. Over time, these consistent choices shape identity. The person does not just believe in environmental care, they live it. Self-discipline plays a role here. Acting on values often requires effort, especially when the easier path tempts you. A person who values health may have to push themselves to exercise on days when they feel tired. Someone who values honesty may need courage to admit a mistake instead of hiding it. These moments of choice test your commitment. Each time you choose according to your values, you strengthen both the habit and the sense of integrity that comes with it. Accountability can help when willpower alone is not enough. Sharing your intentions with a trusted friend or mentor creates a sense of responsibility. Imagine someone who values creativity, but often neglects their art because of work and chores. By joining a weekly art group, they commit to showing up and creating. The group provides structure and encouragement, helping them live their value more consistently. Reflection remains important, even after you start aligning actions. Life changes, and so do values. What mattered deeply in one stage may shift in another. For instance, a person might prioritize adventure and exploration in their 20s. Later, they may value stability and nurturing family relationships more. Periodic reflection ensures that your actions keep pace with your evolving inner world. Misalignment often shows up as tension or fatigue. You might feel constantly busy, yet strangely unfulfilled. Imagine someone who says they value balance, but spends nearly every evening working late. They tell themselves it is temporary, but weeks stretch into years. Eventually, they feel burned out and disconnected from loved ones. This pain is a sign to pause and reassess. By stepping back, they can make different choices, delegating tasks, setting boundaries, or even changing roles, to bring their actions closer to their value of balance. Examples of alignment appear in all areas of life. A leader who values transparency might hold regular meetings where employees can ask direct questions. A teacher who values curiosity might design lessons that encourage exploration rather than rote memorization. A friend who values loyalty might show up during difficult times, not just when things are easy. These behaviors build trust because they reflect a stable inner core. Living in alignment with values does not guarantee a life without struggle. Hardships will still come. The difference is that when challenges arise, you can face them with a clear sense of who you are. Even when circumstances are painful, you know why you are making certain choices. This clarity brings strength. It helps you endure setbacks without losing yourself in the process. Acting with integrity is a continual practice. Each day offers new opportunities to either drift or stay true to what matters. The alignment may not always be visible to others, but you feel it inside. It shows up as a quiet steadiness, a sense that your life reflects your deepest priorities. When your actions match your values, you experience a kind of inner harmony that cannot be created by external rewards alone. Through reflection, courage, and consistent effort, this harmony becomes the foundation for a life lived with purpose and truth. Pain leaves marks that are not always visible. A person can look fine on the outside, while carrying deep wounds inside. These wounds might come from loss, betrayal, trauma, or the slow accumulation of stress over many years. When hurt goes unprocessed, it often lingers, shaping thoughts and behaviors in ways we do not fully understand. Reflection creates space to face this pain directly. By thinking deeply about experiences, emotions, and patterns, you begin to untangle what happened and why it still affects you. This process is not quick or easy, but it is a path toward healing and resilience. Imagine someone who has gone through a painful breakup. At first, they feel overwhelmed by sadness and anger. They try to distract themselves with work, entertainment, or constant socializing. These distractions bring temporary relief, but the pain always returns. One evening, they sit alone and allow themselves to think about what happened. They replay conversations, notice the feelings that rise, and ask hard questions about the relationship. Over time, they begin to see not only what went wrong between them and their partner, but also how their own patterns contributed to the outcome. This understanding does not erase the hurt, but it gives it meaning. Instead of a vague ache, the experience becomes a story they can make sense of. Reflection works like this in many areas of life. When you avoid thinking about painful events, they often grow stronger in the shadows. You might find yourself reacting to small things with intense emotion, not realizing that old wounds are being triggered. For example, someone who was betrayed in childhood might feel a surge of anger when a friend cancels plans, even though the situation is minor. The reaction makes sense only when seen in the context of past pain. Reflection helps connect these dots. It shines light on the hidden roots of your current feelings. Writing can be a powerful tool for this kind of work. When you write about painful experiences, you create distance between yourself and the event. The act of putting words on paper organizes chaotic thoughts. Imagine someone who survived a serious accident. At first, the memories come in fragments, flashes of sound, smell, and fear. By writing, they piece together a narrative. This process helps them move from feeling overwhelmed to feeling in control of their story. The trauma remains part of their life, but it no longer defines them completely. Talking with others can also support healing. Sometimes you need to hear your own words out loud to fully understand them. A trusted friend, counselor, or support group can provide a safe space for this. Imagine someone who has lost a parent. In the early days of grief, they might feel numb or unable to speak. Over time, as they share memories and feelings with others, the weight becomes easier to bear. The act of being heard validates their experience. Reflection in conversation works differently from private reflection, but both are important. Deep thinking does not mean dwelling endlessly on the past. There is a difference between reflection and rumination. Rumination circles around pain without leading to understanding. It is like pacing in a small room, going over the same thoughts again and again. Reflection, in contrast, looks for patterns and meaning. It asks questions like, what did this experience teach me? Or how can I carry this pain in a way that makes me stronger? The goal is not to erase the hurt, but to integrate it into your life in a way that allows growth. Consider someone who lost their job unexpectedly. At first, they might feel only anger and fear. If they stay stuck in rumination, they replay the unfairness of it without moving forward. But through reflection, they began to see other layers. They recognize how the job was never a good fit, how it drained their energy, and how they now have a chance to pursue something more meaningful. The loss remains difficult, but it becomes a turning point rather than a permanent wound. Reflection can also uncover buried emotions. Some people cope by suppressing feelings because they seem too overwhelming. For example, a child who grows up in a chaotic home might learn to hide sadness or fear in order to survive. As an adult, they may feel disconnected from their own emotions. During quiet reflection, these old feelings begin to surface. At first, this can be frightening, but facing them allows release, like a locked door slowly opening. The process brings fresh air to parts of the self that were shut away for years. Healing often involves forgiveness. This does not mean excusing harmful behavior. It means choosing to release the hold that resentment has over you. Reflection helps you see the full picture: what happened, why it hurt, and how holding on to anger affects you now. Imagine someone whose friend betrayed them. At first, they replay the betrayal daily, feeling rage each time. Through reflection, they realize the anger is consuming their energy. By forgiving, They do not condone the betrayal, but they free themselves from carrying it forever. Resilience grows through this process. When you reflect on past pain and see how you survived, you begin to trust your own strength. Think about a person who went through a serious illness. During treatment, they felt powerless and afraid. Later, as they reflect on what they endured, they see how they found courage in small moments, showing up for appointments, accepting help, enduring discomfort. This recognition builds resilience. The next time life brings hardship, they remember what they are capable of and face it with greater confidence. Some healing happens quietly, in moments when you least expect it. You might be walking in nature or listening to music when a memory surfaces. Instead of pushing it away, you pause and sit with it. You allow yourself to feel whatever comes, whether sadness, anger, or gratitude. These small acts of reflection accumulate over time. Slowly, the sharp edges of pain begin to soften. Cultural messages often encourage people to move on quickly after loss or trauma, but rushing past pain does not lead to true healing. Reflection takes time. Imagine a wound on the body. Covering it up with a bandage too soon might hide it, but without proper care, it festers beneath the surface. Emotional wounds work the same way. They need air, attention, and patience to heal fully. Reflection provides that care. Boundaries are important during this process. Sometimes, reflecting on painful experiences can feel overwhelming. It is okay to take breaks or to seek support from a therapist or trusted friend. Healing is not about pushing yourself to face everything at once. It is about pacing the work so that it remains sustainable. Over time, reflection can transform even the deepest pain into a source of wisdom. Consider someone who survived a difficult childhood. Through years of reflection, therapy, and growth, they come to understand how their past shaped them. They learn to recognize triggers and to nurture parts of themselves that were once neglected. Later, they use this insight to help others who face similar struggles. Their trauma does not disappear, but it becomes part of a larger story of resilience and purpose. The process of healing through reflection is rarely straightforward. There are days of progress and days when old pain resurfaces. This back and forth can feel discouraging, but it is part of the work. Each time you reflect, you peel back another layer. Each time you sit with discomfort instead of running from it, you strengthen your capacity to face life as it is. In this way, reflection becomes not just a tool for healing, but a practice of resilience that carries you forward, one moment at a time. Writing has a way of slowing the mind. Thoughts that feel tangled and overwhelming inside your head become clearer when they are placed on paper. Journaling takes those thoughts and gives them form. Instead of circling endlessly in your mind, they settle into sentences and paragraphs where you can see them. This simple act can bring relief, understanding, and a sense of control. Many people carry complex emotions without knowing how to express them. Journaling provides a private, safe space to explore those emotions without fear of judgment. Imagine someone coming home after a difficult day. Their boss criticized them in front of coworkers. Traffic was bad on the way home, and a friend canceled dinner plans at the last minute. By evening, they feel frustrated, hurt, and drained. Without an outlet, these feelings might spill out in anger toward a loved one or turn inward as self-blame. Instead, they sit down with a notebook and start to write. At first, the words come quickly and messily. They describe the events of the day and how each one made them feel. As they keep writing, patterns begin to appear. They realize the criticism from their boss reminded them of a past experience, which made the reaction stronger than the situation alone. This insight helps them respond more thoughtfully in the future. Journaling is like holding up a mirror to your inner world. It shows you what is happening beneath the surface. Often, you do not realize how much you are carrying until you see it written down. For example, someone might write about a recurring argument with their partner and notice that the same issue keeps coming up in slightly different forms. They might see that the real problem is not about the dishes or the bills, but about feeling unappreciated. Once this core issue becomes clear, we can address it directly rather than staying stuck in repetitive fights. Writing also creates distance between you and your emotions. When a strong feeling hits, it can feel like it will last forever. Anger, sadness, or fear seem permanent in the moment. But when you describe them in writing, you begin to see them as passing experiences rather than absolute truths. Instead of saying, "I am angry," you might write, "I felt anger when this happened." That small shift in language helps you remember that emotions are temporary. They move through you, but they are not the whole of who you are. Over time, journaling builds a record of your growth. Looking back at old entries shows how far you have come. Imagine reading something you wrote a year ago about a problem that felt overwhelming at the time. You may realize that you have gained skills, strength, or perspective since then. This recognition can boost confidence and provide encouragement when facing new challenges. It is like seeing a map of your own journey, with clear evidence of progress. Some people use journals to track specific goals or habits. For instance, someone trying to manage anxiety might record daily stress levels and coping strategies. Over weeks and months, patterns emerge. They may notice certain triggers that consistently cause stress or techniques that reliably bring calm. This information allows them to make informed changes. Without writing things down, these connections might remain invisible. Journaling can also help with decision-making. When faced with a difficult choice, thoughts often feel scattered. Writing allows you to lay out the options, weigh the pros and cons, and explore your feelings about each path. Imagine someone considering a major career change. On one page, they list what excites them about the new opportunity. On another, they write their fears and concerns. Seeing both sides in black and white brings clarity that endless internal debate cannot. There is no single right way to journal. Some people write long, detailed narratives. Others use short bullet points or even single words. The style matters less than the act of capturing thoughts. What matters is honesty. A journal works best when you write without censoring yourself. It is a place to be completely truthful, even about feelings you might not share with anyone else. For example, you might admit in writing that you feel jealous of a friend's success. Naming this feeling does not make you a bad person. It simply gives you a starting point for understanding and growth. Creativity often flows more freely in journals than in other settings. Because there is no audience, you can experiment with ideas without pressure. A writer might jot down story fragments. A musician might describe melodies in words, or an entrepreneur might brainstorm solutions to problems. These early ideas do not need to be polished. The journal becomes a private workshop where thoughts can develop naturally. Journaling can also deepen gratitude. By writing down moments of appreciation, you train your mind to notice them more often. At the end of each day, you might list 3 things that went well, no matter how small. Over time, this practice shifts your focus. Even during difficult periods, you begin to see that there are always small pieces of good woven into your life. This perspective builds resilience. For some, journaling helps process trauma. Painful memories can feel chaotic and fragmented. Writing about them provides structure. Imagine someone who experienced a serious loss. At first, their grief feels like a storm with no clear shape. Through writing, they begin to create a narrative. They describe what happened, how they felt, and how those feelings changed over time. This process helps them integrate the experience into their life story. The pain remains, but it becomes something they can carry with greater strength. Privacy is important in this kind of work. Knowing that no one else will read your words creates freedom. You can express anger, fear, or confusion without worrying about how it sounds. This openness allows you to explore even the most difficult emotions. Some people choose to destroy old entries once they have served their purpose, treating the act of tearing or burning the pages as a symbolic release. Others keep their journals as a personal archive of growth. Journaling can also reveal subconscious beliefs. Sometimes, themes emerge that you were not aware of before. For instance, you might notice that many entries contain phrases like, "I don't deserve this," or "I'm always the one who has to fix things." These repeated statements point to deep-seated beliefs that shape behavior. Once you see them, you can begin to question whether they are true or useful. Consistency matters more than quantity. Writing for even 5 minutes a day can have a powerful effect. The key is to make it a regular practice. Imagine brushing your teeth. Each session is small, but the habit protects your health over time. Journaling works in a similar way for emotional well-being. It keeps your inner world clean and clear, preventing small stresses from building into larger problems. While journaling is personal, it can also support conversations with others. If you are working with a therapist or mentor, sharing selected entries can help them understand your experiences. It provides concrete examples rather than vague descriptions. This shared reflection can lead to deeper insights and more focused guidance. Over time, the act of writing itself becomes a form of meditation. As you put pen to paper, your breathing slows and your thoughts settle. The outside world fades, leaving only you and your inner landscape. In this quiet space, insights often arise that you might miss in the rush of daily life. Some of these insights are small, like realizing you need more rest. Others are profound, like understanding a long-standing pattern in relationships. Each one adds to your self-knowledge. Journaling is both simple and profound. It requires only a notebook, a pen, and a willingness to be honest. Yet its effects ripple outward, shaping how you think, feel, and grow. By capturing your deep thoughts in writing, you create a tool for processing emotions, making decisions, and tracking the story of your own becoming. Through this practice, you turn the chaos of the inner world into something visible and manageable, one page at a time. Adversity has a way of shaking everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world. It disrupts routines, tests relationships, and forces you to face realities you might have avoided before. While no one seeks hardship, these moments often carry the potential for the deepest growth. When life feels easy, it is tempting to move through days without much reflection. Challenges interrupt that flow. They make you stop, question, and search for meaning. Through that search, profound realizations can emerge. Imagine someone who has built a stable life, a secure job, a loving family, a sense of control over their future. Then, without warning, they are laid off from work. At first, there is shock and anger. Bills pile up, confidence crumbles, and fear creeps in. In those early days, it feels like nothing good could come from the situation. But as weeks pass, space opens for reflection. The person begins to see how much of their identity was tied to their job title. They realize that losing it, while painful, gives them a chance to redefine who they are and what they want. This insight does not erase the struggle, but it transforms how they move through it. Adversity tests beliefs. Many people hold quiet assumptions about how life works. They may believe that hard work always leads to success, or that good things happen to good people. When tragedy strikes, these beliefs can collapse. Imagine someone who has always believed the world is fair. Then a loved one becomes seriously ill for no clear reason. That person may feel angry, confused, or betrayed by life itself. This moment of disorientation is difficult, but it also creates an opening. By questioning old assumptions, they can build a deeper, more resilient understanding of the world. Instead of simple ideas about fairness, they may come to see life as complex, unpredictable, and still worth engaging with fully. During hardship, hidden strengths often emerge. People discover parts of themselves they never knew existed. Think of someone who has always seen themselves as timid. When faced with a family emergency, they step up to organize care, make decisions, and support others. Later, they look back and realize they are far stronger than they believed. Adversity pushed them to grow because the situation demanded it. Without the challenge, that strength might have stayed buried. Loss often brings a similar process. Grief can feel like an endless void at first. The pain of losing someone close is sharp and consuming. In time, reflection can turn that pain into something meaningful. Imagine a person who loses a friend to an accident. For months, they struggle with anger and sadness. Slowly, through journaling and conversation, they begin to see how deeply their friend shaped their life. They decide to honor that impact by living more fully themselves, taking risks, expressing love openly, and not postponing joy. The loss remains, but it becomes a guide rather than only a wound. Adversity also highlights what matters most. When resources are limited or time feels uncertain, clarity sharpens. Someone facing a serious illness may realize how much energy they once spent on trivial concerns. Arguments over small issues no longer seem important. Instead, relationships, meaningful work, and simple moments of beauty rise to the forefront. This shift in perspective can outlast the hardship itself. Even after recovery, they carry a deeper appreciation for life's essentials. Finding meaning in adversity does not mean pretending the experience was good. Pain should not be romanticized or minimized. It is natural to feel anger, sadness, or despair. The search for meaning comes later, once the rawness begins to ease. It involves asking questions like, "What can I learn from this?" Or, "How can I use this experience to help others?" These questions do not erase suffering, but they prevent it from being only destructive. Consider someone who survives a natural disaster. In the aftermath, they lose their home and possessions. At first, the focus is on survival, finding shelter, food, and safety. Later, as they rebuild, they reflect on what truly matters. They may realize that while objects were lost, their relationships and resilience remain. Some even go on to volunteer in disaster relief efforts, using their experience to support others. The hardship becomes part of a larger story, one that includes purpose and connection. Sometimes, meaning comes not from action, but from acceptance. There are situations that cannot be fixed or changed, no matter how much effort you give. A person facing a chronic illness may not be able to regain their old life. Instead, they find meaning by adapting and discovering joy within new limitations. This process requires deep reflection. It involves letting go of the past version of yourself and embracing who you are now. Over time, this acceptance can bring peace, even in the midst of ongoing challenge. Adversity also reveals the strength of community. During hard times, people often discover how deeply interconnected they are with others. Imagine someone who has always prided themselves on independence. When a crisis hits, they are forced to rely on friends, neighbors, or even strangers. This dependence may feel uncomfortable at first, but it also brings unexpected gifts. They learn that asking for help does not make them weak. It builds bonds of trust and compassion. These connections often last long after the immediate crisis has passed. Reflection plays a central role in all of this. Without reflection, hardship can feel like meaningless suffering. You might move through the motions of recovery without truly understanding what happened or how it changed you. Taking time to think deeply allows you to weave events into a coherent story. This story gives context to your pain and helps you carry it. Writing, meditation, or quiet walks can create the space needed for this kind of thinking. One example is a soldier returning from war. They may carry traumatic memories that surface in unpredictable ways. Without reflection, these memories might remain fragmented and overwhelming. Through therapy and journaling, they begin to piece them together. They see not only the horrors they witnessed, but also the moments of courage and connection. This process does not erase the trauma, but it turns it into something they can live with. Over time, they may even find ways to use their experience to advocate for peace or support other veterans. The search for meaning does not always lead to clear answers. Sometimes, the lesson is simply that life is fragile and uncertain. Even this awareness can be transformative. Imagine someone who survives a near-death experience. They may not find a specific reason why they were spared, but they come away with a renewed sense of urgency. They stop postponing dreams and start living with greater presence. The adversity becomes a silent teacher, shaping their choices without providing explanations. Growth through hardship is rarely linear. There are setbacks, days when it feels like nothing is improving, and moments when old pain resurfaces. This does not mean you are failing. Healing and meaning often unfold in cycles. Each return to the pain offers a chance to see it from a slightly different angle, to extract another piece of insight. With time, these small shifts add up to profound transformation. When you look back on adversity, you may see that it changed not only your circumstances, but also your inner world. Beliefs you once held may no longer fit. Strengths you never imagined may now define you. Relationships may deepen or dissolve. Through it all, meaning acts as a thread, weaving the experience into the fabric of your life. It does not remove the difficulty, but it turns chaos into a story that carries you forward. Resilience is the ability to face challenges without falling apart. It is not about avoiding pain or pretending difficulties do not exist. Instead, it is about meeting life as it comes and staying grounded through uncertainty. Some people seem naturally resilient, but this strength is not fixed. It can be built and strengthened over time. Reflection plays a key role in this process. By regularly examining your thoughts, feelings, and reactions, you prepare yourself to handle stress with clarity and courage. Imagine someone who reacts impulsively to every setback. When plans change, they panic. When criticized, they lash out or shut down. Each challenge feels like a personal attack. Life becomes a constant storm, and they feel tossed around by forces beyond their control. Now picture another person who faces the same events but responds differently. When plans change, they pause, think, and adapt. When criticized, they listen, decide what is useful, and let the rest go. The difference between the two is not luck. It is mental resilience shaped by reflection. Reflection creates a space between stimulus and response. In that space, you can choose your reaction rather than letting emotions take over. For instance, if a coworker speaks harshly to you, your first impulse might be to snap back. But if you take a breath and reflect, you might realize their tone reflects their stress, not your worth. With that understanding, you can respond calmly or decide to walk away. Over time, this habit of pausing builds strength. Resilience does not mean staying calm all the time. It means recovering after you have been shaken. Reflection helps with this recovery by making sense of what happened. Imagine someone who experiences a painful breakup. At first, the emotions are overwhelming. Through journaling or quiet thought, they begin to sort through the memories. They see which parts of the relationship were healthy and which were harmful. They notice patterns that might show up in future relationships. This clarity turns raw pain into lessons. Instead of remaining stuck in the past, they carry forward insight that makes them stronger. Life brings both predictable stress and sudden upheavals. Daily frustrations, like traffic or workplace conflict, wear on you gradually. Major events, like illness or loss, strike without warning. Reflection helps with both. For small stressors, it acts like maintenance. By checking in with yourself regularly, you prevent minor frustrations from building into explosive reactions. For major challenges, reflection provides stability. It reminds you of your values and strengths when everything else feels uncertain. Consider a firefighter who faces danger and chaos on the job. Without reflection, the stress could easily lead to burnout or emotional numbness. By taking time after each shift to process what happened, they release tension and regain focus. They might write down key moments or talk through events with a trusted colleague. This practice strengthens their ability to keep serving others without losing themselves in the process. Mental resilience also involves recognizing patterns in your thinking. Everyone has automatic thoughts that rise in response to stress. Some of these are helpful, like "I can handle this one step at a time." Others are destructive, like "I always fail," or "this is hopeless." Reflection allows you to notice these thoughts instead of being controlled by them. Imagine someone who faces a challenging project at work. Their first thought might be, "I'm not smart enough to do this." Through reflection, they catch this thought and question it. They remember past successes and decide to focus on problem solving instead of self-doubt. Over time, placing negative patterns with realistic, supportive thoughts builds a resilient mindset. Relationships play a part in resilience, and reflection strengthens those connections. When you understand your own triggers and needs, you communicate more clearly with others. For example, a parent who reflects on their stress levels might recognize when they are about to snap at their child. Instead of yelling, they take a moment to calm down and explain their feelings. This approach not only preserves the relationship, but also models healthy coping for the child. Strong relationships create a network of support that helps you weather challenges. Physical well-being is closely linked to mental resilience. Stress affects the body, leading to tension, fatigue, and illness. Reflection helps you notice early signs of strain. You might realize that headaches always appear after a week of poor sleep, or that irritability spikes when you skip meals. By paying attention, you can make adjustments before stress overwhelms you. In this way, reflection works like preventive care for both mind and body. Imagine a student preparing for final exams. Without reflection, they might push themselves relentlessly, staying up late and ignoring their health. By reflecting each evening, they notice signs of burnout, difficulty concentrating, mood swings, exhaustion. This awareness allows them to rest, eat well, and plan study sessions more effectively. As a result, they perform better and remain balanced. Resilience grows through repeated practice, much like building muscle. Each time you face a challenge and reflect on it, you strengthen your capacity for the next one. At first, even small stressors may feel overwhelming. Over time, you gain perspective. What once seemed unbearable becomes manageable. For example, a new manager might feel anxious every time they give feedback. Through reflection, they analyze what went well and what could improve. With each experience, their confidence grows. Eventually, the task that once caused panic becomes routine. Setbacks are inevitable, and reflection helps you navigate them without losing hope. Imagine an athlete who trains for months but fails to qualify for a competition. The initial disappointment is sharp. Through reflection, they examine their preparation, identify weaknesses, and plan for the next season. This process turns failure into fuel. Without reflection, the same failure might lead to quitting altogether. Gratitude is another tool that strengthens resilience. Reflecting on what remains good, even during hardship, provides balance. Consider someone facing financial stress. While acknowledging their difficulties, may also take time to notice supportive friends, good health, or simple daily joys. This perspective does not erase the problem, but it prevents despair from taking over. Regular reflection can take many forms. Some people journal, while others meditate or talk with trusted friends. What matters is consistency. By setting aside even a few minutes each day, you build a habit of checking in with yourself. This habit creates a foundation that holds steady when larger challenges arise. Imagine reflection as building a bridge. Each session lays another plank, connecting where you are now to where you want to be. When a storm hits, that bridge keeps you from being swept away. It does not stop the storm, but it gives you a way to cross safely. Resilience does not mean facing everything alone. Reflection can help you recognize when to seek help. By honestly assessing your limits, you avoid pushing yourself to the point of collapse. For instance, someone coping with grief might reflect on their emotional state and realize they need therapy or support groups. Asking for help becomes an act of strength rather than weakness. Over time, reflection changes how you see challenges. Instead of viewing them only as threats, you begin to see them as opportunities for growth. This shift does not happen overnight. It comes from repeatedly examining hardships and noticing how they shape you. Each reflection adds to your inner toolkit, making you more prepared for whatever comes next. When you face difficulties with clarity and courage, you move through life with a steady core. External events may be unpredictable, but your inner foundation remains firm. Reflection builds that foundation piece by piece, turning everyday struggles into chances to practice resilience. Through this ongoing process, you develop the strength to meet life as it is, no matter how turbulent it becomes. Every great idea begins as something small, often just a single thought that lingers in the mind. At first, it may seem insignificant or even unrealistic. Many people dismiss these early sparks before they have a chance to grow. The difference between those who create something remarkable and those who do not often comes down to the willingness to explore that first quiet idea. A deep thought, when given attention, can become the foundation for inventions, works of art, and discoveries that change the world. Imagine someone sitting alone late at night, staring at a candle. They notice how the flame flickers and how shadows dance on the walls. Most people might see nothing more than light and shadow. But for this person, a question arises. Could light be harnessed in a new way to illuminate entire cities? That single thought might lead to experiments, failures, and eventually the invention of electric light. History is full of such moments where a simple observation sparked years of effort and innovation. Art often begins in this same way. A painter may see a tree swaying in the wind and feel something stir inside them. They might not know why this image matters, only that it does. Over time, they return to that feeling, sketching and painting until a masterpiece emerges. The final artwork may look grand and deliberate, but its roots lie in one quiet moment of noticing. Many famous works started as nothing more than a fleeting impression that someone cared enough to explore. Deep thoughts require space to grow. In our busy, noisy world, these seeds can be easily lost. People rush from task to task, never pausing long enough to notice the ideas drifting through their minds. Reflection creates the soil where ideas can take root. By setting aside time for solitude or journaling, you make room for those small sparks to emerge. Without this space, even the most brilliant idea can wither before it has a chance to form. Consider a scientist studying patterns in nature. At first, they are focused on a single problem, like how birds navigate during migration. One day, while reflecting quietly, they realize that the same principles guiding bird flight could apply to other areas, such as designing better navigation systems for airplanes. This leap in thinking does not happen through constant action alone. It comes from pausing, stepping back, and allowing the mind to connect seemingly unrelated pieces. And many discoveries have come from such connections. Isaac Newton reportedly began thinking about gravity after watching an apple fall. The sight of the apple was ordinary. What was extraordinary was Newton's decision to explore the question deeply. Why did the apple fall straight down instead of sideways or upward? That simple observation grew into theories that shaped modern science. Countless advances in medicine, technology, and art share similar origins. A single, curious thought pursued with persistence. Fear often keeps people from nurturing their ideas. The early stages of a thought can feel fragile. It is easy to doubt yourself or assume others will judge the idea as foolish. Imagine someone who dreams of writing a novel. They have a vivid image of a character and a story forming in their mind. If they dismiss it as unimportant, the story fades. If they take it seriously and begin writing, even in rough drafts, the story grows stronger. The act of exploring an idea is what turns it from fantasy into reality. Failure is part of this process. Many seeds never grow into full creations, and that is natural. The Wright brothers, known for inventing the first successful airplane, spent years testing designs that did not work. Each failure taught them something new and brought them closer to success. If they had given up after the first attempt, flight, as we know it, might have been delayed for decades. The willingness to keep exploring despite setbacks is essential for bringing deep thoughts to life. Support from others can help an idea grow. While the initial spark often happens alone, collaboration provides the resources and perspectives needed to develop it further. Imagine a musician who hears a melody in their head. They play it quietly at home, but cannot quite shape it into a full song. When they share it with other musicians, the melody expands. Someone adds lyrics, another adds harmony, and together they create a piece that none of them could have made alone. This is how many innovations evolve, through the blending of individual insights into collective effort. Not every deep thought leads to a world-changing invention. Some ideas transform a single life rather than an entire society. A person might reflect on their daily routine and realize they are unhappy with their career. That thought could inspire them to make a small change, like taking a class or starting a side project. Over time, those small steps might lead to a completely different life path. From the outside, it may not look like a dramatic discovery, but for that individual, it is transformative. The process of developing an idea often requires patience. People sometimes expect inspiration to arrive fully formed, but most ideas grow in stages. The first thought is like a seed. You must water it with attention and care. This might mean returning to the idea repeatedly, sketching, experimenting, or talking it through with trusted friends. Over weeks or months, the idea begins to take shape. Eventually, you reach a point where it can be shared with others or brought into action. Without this steady nurturing, even brilliant ideas can remain vague and unrealized. Consider how technology has evolved. Many of the devices we rely on today began as abstract concepts. The smartphone, for example, combines computing, communication, photography, and entertainment in a single object. Before it existed, someone had to imagine that such a device was possible. That initial vision was likely rough and incomplete. Over time, through countless iterations, it became the tool we now take for granted. This evolution shows how powerful a single thought can be when pursued with dedication. Reflection also helps you decide which ideas are worth pursuing. Not every thought deserves action. By sitting with an idea, you can sense whether it holds genuine meaning or is just a passing distraction. Imagine a person who constantly comes up with business schemes. Some of these are exciting but unrealistic. Through reflection, they can sort through the noise and identify the ideas that align with their values and skills. This focus prevents wasted energy and increases the chances of success. Deep thoughts often carry a spark of curiosity. They begin with a question like, "What if?" or "Why not?" Curiosity fuels exploration. Without it, ideas fade before they have a chance to grow. Children display this naturally, asking endless questions about the world. Adults sometimes lose this curiosity under the weight of routine and responsibility. Reflection rekindles it. By giving yourself permission to wonder, you open the door to discovery. Even small ideas can have ripple effects. A teacher might develop a new way to explain a difficult concept. That method helps their students, who who then share their knowledge with others. Over time, the impact spreads far beyond the classroom. The teacher may never know how far their idea traveled, but it began with one deep moment of thought. Great ideas do not appear out of nowhere. They come from paying attention, asking questions, and daring to explore what others overlook. Whether in science, art, or daily life, these ideas shape the future. A single thought, nurtured through reflection and action, can grow into something that changes not only one person's path, but the paths of many others.